Is everyone good and settled? We're good? All right. I'm going to hereby call this meeting of the Orangetown Town Board to order. Please, we do the roll of the pledge first. I forgot. I'm blanking out. Please take the roll, clerk. Thank you.
Councilman Dennis Troy.
Present.
Councilman Tom Divany.
Here.
Councilman Paul Valentine.
Here.
Councilman Jerry Vitari.
Here.
Supervisor Chris Day.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Can you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right. So for those of you who aren't normally with us, which seems like I'm going to guess most of the room, we're going to start off the regular town board meeting. We're going to go through some housekeeping stuff, some announcements. We have some presentations which are unrelated to the zone change request. We then will have the hearing no earlier than 8:05. It may be a couple minutes after, but legally we can't start before 8:05 p.m. to give everyone time to filter in. At that point, the applicant will present. Then we have the paleontologist who studied the site to present about the dinosaur issue or whether there's one. And then public comment will go on for that issue. There's also a public comment period for other issues generally, which I would ask you, if you are here for the hearing, speak during the hearing, or your thoughts won't get put into the record on the zone. It'll just be floating in the ether, okay? So a few announcements. First, I want to bring attention to something that we're doing here. We're now digitizing our process up here. I finally have a tablet. We're going to have everything in the agenda that used to be this is now going to be in this. This times 6, 7. So I'm test running it. Don't worry. We'll see how it goes. And we'll go from there. So a couple more announcements. We have the Pearl River Chamber of Commerce and us co-sponsor a farmers market every Sunday through November 24th. It goes from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on North William between Washington Central. Urge you to attend. There's some great vendors there. We have a series of public hearings coming up. This Saturday there's a public meeting, but it's not a hearing, a presentation from the town department heads for their portions of the budget or the requests. Then on the 17th, we may end up having a continuation of this. We're penciling in for this. I'm sorry, no, it's a different one. This is for a different zone change request for Bieber on Route 303 to convert from one type of commercial to another. That's on the 17th, 8:05 p.m. Also on the 17th, we have a public hearing to approve a proposal for the town to do some emergency property maintenance on a private property that has been neglecting its maintenance. Then also on the 17th, we have a public hearing, the first of several public hearings regarding a proposed transit-oriented development zone in Pearl River. Then on the 22nd, Sunday, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., the Orangetown Police Department is having its 22nd annual open house. All are welcome. It runs from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. with the wreath laying for Officers Kennedy and Reedy at 1 p.m. by the police department entrance. October 1st, 8:05 p.m. is a proposed new code section to establish community choice aggregation for the town of Orangetown. That's where we're going to be. The town will decide what the default electrical supplier is rather than New York State, which can result in substantial savings for residents if they don't otherwise have a power agreement signed already. That's October 1st. Then we have a unified solar permit also on October 1st to change the town code to adopt the same process for solar permit installations as the rest of the state, which gives us points towards grants and makes it easier to get solar panels on your home. And then also a proposed amendment to our PAC zone to change the rules for lot and bulk controls, the size of things you can put in that zone. That's on October 1st at 8:15 p.m. October 19th, Rosanna Sreja, our town clerk, will be hosting a free paper shredding event in Town Hall from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Very popular. Get there early. The line was outside of the parking lot last time, wrapped around the street. Then another public hearing on October 22nd. This is for the Blauville Fire Protection District portion of our budget. Also, then the Orangetown Library Districts, who you'll hear present today, will have their public hearing on October 22nd at 8:10. And then the public hearing on the preliminary budget will be on the 22nd at 8:20 p.m. Moving on to presentations. First, we have a presentation for a request for use of town facilities for a property at the border of the town in Montvale. The attorney for that, I think it's a single-family home, is Don Brenner, who's going to bring it up for us, and we're going to have a resolution to set a hearing or set the appropriate actions coming up in the agenda. So, Don, when you have a second, you can go ahead when you're ready.
I am ready to go. Just give me 1 second, please.
Sure. No rush.
I just have a sketch here for the board members to determine where the property is. Thank you. Okay, when my client in the year 2001 purchased a tract of land in Pearl River, which was known as Elizabeth Street, for a subdivision, part of that real estate, which you now have before you, the map, has about 1.5 acres in the borough of Montvale. At that time, in the year 2001, he requested that the town board permit him to build 3 houses on that piece of property. Hearings were held. The town, at that time, approved it. In fact, the contract was signed, which he was going to build the 3 houses. Subsequent to that, he discontinued the operation. He's now come back, and instead of 3 houses, he's requesting 2 houses. So primarily, it has to be a contract between the town of Orangetown and the borough of Montvale. And he, as done on the prior contract, he will pay a fee to the sewer department for the use of the sewer, and he will pay a fee to the highway department for their services. Please understand, all those facilities were put in by client when he did the original subdivision.
So just for those who can't see the map, basically, it's 2 homes at the end of a cul-de-sac in Pearl River, but they're not in Pearl River. That end of the cul-de-sac is technically Jersey.
It's in Montville, and it is landlocked, so
And the
they
only way to access it is through Orangetown roads, so we would be then agreeing to provide police response or sewers and things like that.
I have spoken to the police department. They can only service only the street. They cannot go into Montville. The Montville Police Department would have to take care of the house.
Gotcha. All right, so any questions for Mr. Brenner?
I know the property.
Yeah.
You have one of the houses that he did build is half in Pearl River, half in Montville right now,
That's correct.
on the left-hand side.
That's correct.
He pays half his taxes here and half there, then, is that about
I
it?
think
Physical house,
The property.
the property,
Oh,
This one right here.
Yeah, yeah, it's split, yeah.
Yeah, it's, I mean, those houses are
Interesting.
nice.
Well, okay, it seems like a pretty minor thing, just, we gotta make sure that they get their services from us, because otherwise they can't get to their house.
Yeah, it's not a done deal, he has to.
Yeah, we gotta present,
speak to
right.
Dini and all the,
that's correct. I have to
police
get, I have to work out
fire,
I have to work out
et
an arrangement with all the
Right.
utilities.
So you proceed forward, and we'll, when you're ready, we'll put it on the agenda for appropriate timing. and
I've already
such.
gotten a letter from the police department. I will be ready if you put it on the
Okay, I
agenda.
think, we have an agenda item to set it, right? Or to schedule it, no? We can get it, does it have to be a public hearing, Rob, or is it just a,
Yeah,
just a?
I'd like to see him get his,
Okay,
get everything lined
I'll
up.
get all the
It's
letters.
probably a short notice hearing anyway, so if, because it's not a zoning thing, so the next meeting, we can set it if we need a hearing.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
thank you.
Right.
All right, next, we have presentations by our libraries and special districts. We have budgeted about 5 minutes each. If you do 2 or 3, that's totally fine, too. There's a lot of people here. First, we have Rockland Paramedics. Is Ray here? Don't see Ray Florida from Rockland Paramedics. All right, Rockland Paramedics is going last then? Oh, they're not set till 8:15. Whoa, hold on. I'm just noticing that.
So see if anybody's here that wants to move on.
Who's here from the libraries and special districts? Raise your hand. 1.
Mike, he's next.
Mike?
Mike,
All right.
Mike is second.
We're going to do Blauvelt Fire Department now, and we'll move on to the next agenda item, because technically we're ahead of schedule for them. They were probably going to be a lot later than 8:15, though, as a result of that. But.
You're not 20 minutes early, right?
And just so everyone knows what's going on, in Pearl River Library and all the other fire departments are funded by direct taxation. The South Orangetown side of town, other than Piermont, the libraries are funded as budget line items by the town, and also the cost of fees and stuff like that. And the Blauvelt Fire Protection District is funded as a budget line item also. There's just some associated rules with what their powers are and such in New York State. It worked out that way. So that's why we're only hearing from Blauvelt for fire, and we're not hearing from Pearl River with libraries later on. Mike, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Town Board. My name is Mike Conklin, the treasurer of the Blauvelt Volunteer Fire Company. Dear members of the board, the Blauvelt Volunteer Fire Company is submitting a budget for fire protection services to the hamlet town of Blauvelt 2020-21 for the amount of $606,735. Our budget has been the same for 3 previous years, but unfortunately, we cannot do it at this time. We did choose to exercise and stay under the 2% tax cap, and we've worked hard to lower our budget through the taxpayers of Blauvelt. We did use our reserves to reduce this year's coming budget. Our truck committee did order a replacement for our 1 MP. He'll be coming in 2020. We are now waiting for the new 2020 Ford chassis because we could not order the 2019 due to Ford's regulations. We were starting to update our SCBA's during the replacement of the 1 MP. The SCBA's are well over 45 years old. Back in the 70s, we've been renovating them, bringing them up to code each year, but it's this point now with the NFPA rules we have to change. We'll start a new truck committee to explore the replacement of our 98 2001. As repairs have been adding up in the last years alone, we are waiting for parts right now for a pump repair over $18,000 without our normal preventive maintenance and other apparatus. We're also in the middle of a large capital improvement to our apparatus bay drains and a new epoxy floor. We also had to add to our insurance budget due to the cancer program for firefighters. Along with the cancer protection for our firefighters, we are now required to clean our turnout gear more often at additional cost off-site cleaning. The BVFC is dedicated to continue to provide the best possible fire protection service to the Blauvelt community by controlling costs and taxes to the community which we live and work. On another note, the Blauvelt Volunteer Fire Company will be celebrating its 75th year anniversary to serving the town of Blauvelt and surrounding communities in 2020. Respectfully submitted, Mike Conklin.
Any questions for Blauvelt Fire Protection District at this time? No? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Mike.
Has anyone else from a library shown up? Okay, given no, we will move on. So what we're gonna do, what was that?
Any of the ambulance corps here?
Yeah, ambulance corps, no? I mean, if you know who you are if I'm asking for you. Okay. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're going to workshop the agenda items, which means we're gonna review it, everything that's on the agenda briefly, and then we're gonna go back, and if we have time before the 8:05 hearing time, we'll start a public comment on general topics, and then move into the public hearing after that. All right, so moving forward, we're open public comment, then we have the public hearing for Ryerson Estates, then we have the continuation or closing of that public hearing based on the amount of people here. We're not voting tonight, we're gonna be continuing it to take into account all the comment that ends up happening. Then we have a draft that will be provided at the time we need it for the environmental review. Then we have the draft law related to this, if it were to be passed, which again, this is a draft and it doesn't mean it's happening, it's being considered. Then we have a space here, we still don't have a final name for the planning board slot that's vacant. We had 2 applicants. I don't think I've heard any other suggested names be brought forward. Given that it's been a while, maybe we just review the 2 resumes. If anyone here is interested in the planning board, email a resume to supervisor@orangetown.com. We'll give you a couple days, and then we'll take a look at the resumes we have and see if by the next meeting we can get someone appointed. It's been, I think, a couple months now, where we haven't heard anything from anyone, so.
About 2 months?
Yeah, about 2 months. All right. Then we're gonna be accepting assistance from Suez to tie in. We had a donation of irrigation system for the Walkway of Heroes. That needs to be tied into the water, and Suez generously has agreed to tie in to the water main there so we can do proper sprinklers there. The physical sprinklers have been installed, there's no water yet. This will allow the other landscapers that are gonna adopt a spot there to take better care of the property and make it look nicer than it has before, though our volunteers have done a great job with it. It obviously can only do so much without professional assistance, so Suez has agreed to help out with that for free. Next, we have approving contract with Chief Butterworth for his employment, and then approving a contract with Captain Shannon for his employment since he's been promoted, since they've both been promoted. Then we've got the renewing agreement with Goosetown for the police Toughbook computers we just talked about. Then we are giving permission to our IT team to attend a New York Digital Government Summit, no cost to the town, except for potential travel expenses. The course itself does not cost anything. Then we're gonna have a resolution to approve and authorize funds for the Sparkhill Creek Culvert Repair Transportation Project. It's a long bunch of resolves, but essentially it's to get money for the project. Then we're doing assistance for the 2019 Color Run at Prover Middle School, Saturday, September 14th, barricades and cones and such. Then we're having, under Parks and Rec, proven lead aid for the Piermont PAL League Music Festival on 10/13. They're taking the showmobile. And the Pearl River Day, also the showmobile on the 12th of October. Then the Food Truck and Music Festival that will be at the Nyack Red and Black Booster Club. They are paying for our showmobile as well on September 29th. And the Great Nyack Get Together will be getting 8 portable toilets for the Village of Nyack's Great Get Together, September 14th. Finally, then we have the South Nyack 10 miler, September 8th. That'll also be portable toilets. And then the Italian Feast, that's running from the 12th of September through the 15th of September at the Masonic Fairgrounds. They will have our showmobile for $400. Moving on to the Highway Police, additional assistance for the Sons of Italy Italian Feast. This includes fencing, cones, barricades, message boards, trash cans, and barrels. No parking signs and a police detail. And also light towers coming from the Office of Emergency Management, coordinated through the county. That's from the 12th to the 15th. Then we have an updated SRO agreement with Pearl River, the School Resource Officer Agreement. Nothing material has changed. This is new required language from New York State about defining the role of the police officer that we've assigned in the school disciplinary process. So everything we agreed to is the same. It's just a thing saying he's not, going to send him to detention and stuff, essentially. Then approving settlement of a personal injury claim related to this is not actually an infant, that's a legal term, it was a teenager, if anyone's reading it. An infant was not harmed in this. It's under our insurance, indemnified, so we have to basically pay. Rob, you want to summarize this? What you can, because I don't want to.
Right, I
That's
mean,
up.
it's a public suit, so it's, the index number is referenced, but it's a matter that was really handled by our insurance company. Significant injury, and when we say an infant, at the time, I believe the person was about 12 years old, involved an accident at the golf course that the board's aware of. After much negotiation back and forth, this was the amount that was agreed upon to settle the case without going to trial. And in speaking with the insurance carrier and with Jeff, there are issues in terms of how it gets paid. Either way, the town will not be out the money. It's the insurance company that's paying, but.
We'll be out, what, 100 grand?
Well, there's a self-insured retention for 75,000, so yes, the
Yeah.
town.
We pay $925, we get $850 back.
Yes, right.
Yes, if we pay $925, yes.
He's the math guy,
Yes.
finance.
Yeah.
You're the
No,
worst
I'm
guy.
just, because Gallagher Bassett has paid them, so we have to
Carry the one.
work that out. The third-party administrator has already paid our 75,000, so we have to work that out.
Similar to a workers' comp claim, we have to pay the initial amount in its entirety, and then
We get our share back.
the carrier will reimburse us. We're working very closely together to time it so
Right.
that by the time they get our check, we already have the money.
Right, so it's, but it's a settlement of an action that was scheduled for trial.
Okay. Good. I don't think so. And then we would have the audit, the pay vouchers and such.
Oh, yeah.
We have, I could see at least one more library special district person. Vicky, you want to step up for Tapan? Good, great. It's the place to be. I hear New City is more crowded. If anyone doesn't feel it's crowded enough in here, there's like 600 people up in New City right now, so. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, good.
Sorry,
Good
Vicky.
evening. I am Vicki Caramonte, President of the Tappan Library Board of Directors. I am here tonight to testify in support of our operating budget request of 3% for the year 2020. A 3% levy increase for 2020 equates to $737,879 for the year, or $21,491 and change over the 2019 levy of $716,387. The town board approved no increase to our budget for 2019. Our budget is still not at the level it was when our funding allocation was reduced by the town by 10% in 2013 and again by 10% in 2014. Funding was flat in 2015, and in 2016, 17, and 18, we were granted a 2% increase each year. I mention these percentages to give context to our request for this year. As caretakers of such an important community resource, our Board of Trustees continues to be very fiscally conservative, having drawn down our fund balance while carefully and methodically paying down our mortgage. For the past 3 years, we have made the required payments as well as an additional penalty-free prepayment of $60,000, reducing our mortgage to a current balance of $356,611 as of today. In 2019, we expect to do the same. With our financial vigilance and oversight, we anticipate paying off the mortgage due in 2035 within the next 5 years. Being able to do this will result in a cost saving to Tappan taxpayers of over $315,000 over the life of the loan. We have been working diligently to ensure that our patrons have access to diverse materials, services, and programs while continuing to pay down the debt on our mortgage. As you'll recall from our budget submission, patron visits were up 4.8% in 2018, and our circulation of materials increased over 12.3% that year. To that end, we continue to work closely with the Orangeburg and Palisades libraries on a redistricting plan that we believe will improve library service to our hamlets and to the underserved areas of Spark Hill, and will bring fiscal stability to the library. We thank Supervisor Day for engaging in this conversation, and we thank the town board for allocating funds toward the hiring of Hudson Valley Pattern for Progress to study the potential cost savings of a new self-governing library district to taxpayers. Redistricting is something that has been discussed many times over the past decade, but which never really gained enough traction. We look forward to continuing the conversation. Libraries are an investment in our community. The return on that investment is our quality of life, a safeguarding of our history and of our culture. Between 1886 and 1919, Andrew Carnegie donated more than $40 million for 1,679 new library buildings in communities across America, and most required financial commitments from the town that received the donation. He said, quote, "A library outranks any other one thing a community can do to benefit its people. This holds true today. Our libraries are gathering places for community events, historical societies, and weekly mahjong. Our libraries are the places where one can access the newest book or classics from their favorite author. Patrons can download a movie, a documentary, or music. Libraries are the places where the love of reading is encouraged and developed through exposure to books and a broad vocabulary. We know with certainty that honing early literacy and language skills means greater success in schools. In fact, just this morning, a colleague shared a radio discussion about the just published book, How to Raise a Reader, which describes the importance of reading to and with children of all ages, from birth and beyond, and specifically notes the importance of the library's role in providing a plethora of options from which to choose. Libraries are one of many resources that make Orangetown the wonderful place to live that it is. Some have said that in the age of the internet, no one really uses libraries. In fact, my husband just said that to me as I walked out the door.
That's supportive. Jeez.
I
Ouch.
say that the 53,280 patron visits, the 5,529 program participants, and the over 5,342 reference questions answered in 2018 indicate that people really are using our library. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. You have a question? A question from Councilman Troy.
What's the interest rate on the existing loan?
6.5%.
Yee, ow.
Another reason why we're trying to pay it down as
That is
quickly as
some-
possible.
It's a 1990s era interest
How
right
many years
there.
left on that mortgage?
5 if we're paying it down as quickly as we have been, using that extra $60,000 a year.
Pay it down in 5 years.
It's not, it doesn't make sense for you to refinance it.
Not at this point, no.
No,
No, it's just gonna eat it. Yeah,
you're gonna pay that in closing costs, any savings.
okay.
'Cause the rates are ridiculous right now, they're so low.
Right.
All right. Any other questions for Vicki? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Is there anyone else here from one of the libraries or from the ambulance corps or from the paramedics? Anyone who got here early? Okay, seeing that we don't have anyone there, for those, and seeing how we still have 11 minutes before we can legally start, I know y'all want to start, but I can't do it, don't want to break the rules. Okay, no problem. We're gonna probably be a little later than 8, though. I'm gonna have a motion to open public comment. This is the general topics, not about this hearing. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Councilman Divany, second by Councilman Troy, all in favor? All right, public comment, for public comment on other than the hearing, we have 3 minutes per person. When the bell chimes, please wrap up the sentence you're on, and it's not a back and forth. We won't answer questions during the course of it. We may address what you say after, but generally speaking, it's the end of the public comment session. So the first sign-in we have is Esther Baitler of Spark Hill. Esther? And when you get to the podium, even if I say your name, please read it in for the record. That'll apply later on also.
ADHD, dude.
Whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Supervisor Day and Town Board members. Hi, my name is Esther Baitler, and I'm a consumer who lives in Spark Hill. Tonight, I'm here to address everybody about coming out for the September 11th memorial service outside at Orangetown Town Hall. I hope that everybody will come out on September 9th for this important memorial service. Thank you all and have a great night. Chris, I'm asking you and the board not to have a meeting September 29th and October 8th. It is
Okay.
both the Jewish high holidays. Yom Kippur is the night of the 8th and the day of the 9th.
I think
The
you're good.
Jewish New Year is September 29th for the 30th. Thank you
Okay.
and have a great night.
Thank you. That is an announcement I did forget. September 11th, 6 p.m. here at Town Hall on the lawn is our annual memorial ceremony for 9/11. We're adding names to the memorial as well for folks who passed away recently in the last year from 9/11 related illnesses. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Esther, because I totally forgot to mention that. They, great. I'm glad. Thank you, Esther. I'm sorry, the second person to sign in, I can't quite read your handwriting. Is it Angelo or Angela? Angelo, I'm guessing. Angela Raffa. Whenever you're
Hello.
ready. Go ahead.
I'm Angelo Raffa, 35-year resident of Pearl River, 17th-year member of the Chamber. I'm here in request for streetlights for Central Avenue and for William Street. There are 4 locations for streetlights now that it's getting dark. They didn't put back the streetlights at locations when they replaced the light poles, so I'm requesting they be put back. What I'm requesting is the Cobra-type streetlight for the telephone poles along William Street at locations. One would be on the very corner of William and Central. Another one would be on the end of William by Washington. And then by the train station, they had removed the light by the train tracks, and there are currently Cobra lights along the way, but I'm requesting all the poles from the railroad tracks to 304 to have lights for the commuters down that sidewalk. It's very dark there, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Amanda, if you could link up with him and try to get the specific locations. Sir, my assistant Amanda handles a lot of the traffic light stuff. My assistant Amanda is going to link up with you in the back to try to get the specific locations from you so we can make sure it's taken care of, all right?
Thank you.
Michael Mandel of Pearl River. Okay, we'll get to the-
Good evening, Supervisor Day and members of the town board. For the record, my name is Michael Mandel, the resident of Pearl River. We all got our school tax bills in. For some places, Pearl River wasn't bad. For South Orangetown, I'm glad I don't live there. But I would, and this is a point of interest that you may not have noticed, take a look at what you got last year as your star rebate. Take a look at what you got this year as your star rebate. Everybody I've talked to has gotten a reduction of at least $100 or more in their star rebates. Now, if you call up Senator Galucci's office, they'll tell you they have nothing to do with it. It's our tax assessor who does that. Our tax assessor says he does not do that. And since when does the state let our tax assessor give the star rebates? If he did, he'd probably double or triple them from what they are now if the state's paying for it. So you may want to call his office and address him to find out why the star rebates were reduced. They shouldn't be. They're going to say to you, well, you didn't sign up for getting the rebate checks in the mail, so we couldn't increase it. They're not increasing it, they decreased it. So it's of interest, and maybe you want to give a call to find out what the story is, and maybe if enough people call, we'll get some action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I only have one more sign-in for public comment, so we'll do that, and then we'll go back to the special districts who was here, and then we'll go to the public hearing. Barbara Della of Blauvelt for public comment.
Hi, I'm Barbara Dello of Blauvelt, and the reason I'm here is I wanted to talk to you not after the budget was kind of proposed, but as you were working on it. Some groups are fairly vocal and fairly organized here, coming to before the board. And of course, they have louder voices, so they get listened to. And I would just like to ask both the department chairs and the town board to remember some of the quieter members of our community, both homebound senior citizens and also the residents of some of the smaller hamlets like Blauvelt and Orangeburg, who are not often vocal here in asking for a lot of money spent on them. So please just don't forget these quiet groups as you prepare your budget. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here for public comment on topics other than the proposed zone change? Okay, do I have a motion to close public comment?
Moved.
Councilman Divany, seconded by Councilman Troy, all in favor? Aye. Great. I know I see Blauvelt Library here. Okay. You want to come up and do your presentation now? Thank you. Whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Supervisor Day and members of the town board. My name's Elizabeth Brancotti, and I'm the newly elected president of the Blauvelt Library Board of Trustees. And I'm also here with our library director, Laura Grunberg. We're here this evening to respectfully request the town's funding for the library's fiscal year 2020. The Blauvelt Library has continued to provide valuable services to our hamlet and all South Orangetown residents. Our director, library staff, and friends groups have worked together to develop programming in line with the interests of our patrons. And our most recent renovation has been met with a lot of enthusiasm from patrons and visitors alike. We strive to continue to find innovative ways to provide the highest level of service to our community. For the full year of 2019, the library expects to spend $866,000. This is comprised of $827,000 for general operating expenses, $18,000 for items related to the close of our latest renovation project, and the $20,000 payment that we sent to the town from the library's reserves. Funding for the 2019 spending includes $700,000 from the town of Orangetown, $144,000 from the South Orangetown School District, and some miscellaneous fines and grants and donations of $19,000, and then $38,000 from our reserves, which was used to fund the remaining work related to our renovation and to fund the $20,000 payment we made to the town. At this point in the year, we're now projecting a surplus of $17,000, and when comparing our public funding from the town and school district with our general operating expenses. The primary reason for the surplus that we had not anticipated and couldn't have was the absence of one of our staff members, or one of our hourly staff members, for an extended period of time earlier this year, which we don't anticipate having next year as well. For 2020, we're projecting a spending plan of $954,000. This is comprised of $869,000 for general operating expenses and $85,000 in planned capital improvements, including work to our community room, which was not touched during our last renovation, but there's a need for it from our community members, and roof replacement of our older building. We're anticipating that in 2020 we'll run a deficit of approximately $12,000 when comparing our public funding with the general operating expenses. And so that being the case, we're requesting a 1% increase in our town funding to $707,395. And so as for our reserves, we're projecting at the end of the year 2019, our reserve balance to be $920,000, which is less than our operating expenses for next year. In 2020, we're planning several smaller upgrades to the library, which will be funded completely with our reserves. And a summary of our reserves through 2019 and our planned capital spending has been provided to you. The Blauvelt Library will, of course, continue to work with the town regarding its funding needs and reserve balance, and we're happy to answer any questions from 2019 or for our 2020 budget. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Any questions for Blauvelt Library? No? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have, I believe that's, which library is that? Orangeburg? Orangeburg, if you could step up to the plate.
So wax here.
All right. We're going to be able to knock this out, so go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Town Council, Supervisor Day, members of the community. Thank you for allowing us to present our budget request for the year 2020. My name is Rodney Pike, and I'm a 22-year resident of Spark Hill, and I represent the Orangeburg Library Board of Trustees. The Orangeburg Library Board of Trustees is requesting a modest 2.5% increase in our appropriations for the 2020 budget year. Should you approve the increase, which is just over $14,000, we intend to use it to expand our library's programs. We at the Orangeburg Library take pride in our excellent programming, which serves patrons of all ages. Our seniors in particular have taken advantage of a wide variety of programming, including chair yoga and watercoloring. Our program attendance has steadily increased over the past 5 years. We had just under 7,000 patrons attend programs last year at Orangeburg, and we intend to break that number this year. In the early part of the summer, we had the misfortune of suffering a cyber attack on our library's website, which completely disabled the system. Having a website and online presence is a necessary part of the services we want to provide to our library patrons. The unanticipated expense will come at a substantial cost. The small remaining amount would be utilized to maintain our facility. We'd also like to give our employees a cost of living increase. Again, I'd like to thank you all for letting us present our budget request.
Thank you. Any questions for Orangeburg? All right, thank you. The Palisades right there, I see. Palisades Library. And we would have to stop the hearing and do this in the middle anyway, so we're just gonna knock it out and focus like a laser beam on the hearing then, so go ahead.
Hello, I'm Marjorie Galen. I'm the president of the Palisades Library Board of Trustees. Since 2012, our library has only requested one increase in funding from the town. As expenses increased, the board used reserves to fund the deficit, and for the 2020 budget, the library board submits its funding request in the amount of $404,674, which represents a 6% increase, $22,906, over 2019's funding. The proposed operational expenditure is $491,901, which is $18,559 less, 3.6% less than 2019's proposed budget. The savings were realized through a change in personnel. I would like to point out that the $404,674 that we are requesting is still significantly less than the $462,000 we received in 2012, before the town reduced our funding by 10% 2 years in a row. Although the proposed 2020 operating budget is less than 2019's, the library will be undertaking $180,000 in capital projects over the next 2 years. This fall, we will repair our electrical service and replace our 24-year-old HVAC system. The cost of these two projects is $100,000. In addition to these necessary upgrades, our 24-year-old elevator is due for an expensive overhaul. The hydraulic jack assembly and leaking muffler require replacement, and we need to update the car doors with newer and safer electronic door sensors and install French drains in the elevator pit to protect the new equipment from water damage. Total cost of this project is $80,000. We will apply for a grant for all of this work, which could fund up to 50% of the HVAC and elevator projects. By the end of 2019, we expect to reduce our funds by $124,000, which is 40%, in order to offset the operating budget deficit and to complete the HVAC replacement and electrical service repair. The $80,000 elevator project slated for spring 2020 will nearly deplete all our capital projects reserve. We expect the grant money to replenish some capital reserve to fund future less urgent projects slated for 2021, such as painting the exterior of the building and replacing carpeting. We gratefully acknowledge the support of the town council and are happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Questions for Palisades? Councilman Troy.
You're reducing your capital project reserve. What's the overall fund balance at right now?
Where are we at right now? We are at,
So that, it is in the materials that we gave you. We'll still probably have about $180,000 at the end of 2020.
Okay, thank you.
We also have
including getting our,
a quick update on, if you'd like to hear about the pattern for progress proposal, if you'd like to hear a quick update, or you'd like to say that. for
Let's
another
take
time.
that offline, if
Okay.
you don't mind.
Okay.
If you have a few more
Okay,
people in there.
thank you.
But thank you. We have any other special, I think I see at least one.
We got Wayne. I mean,
All right, I see South Orangetown. You gonna step up, ambulance corps? All right, you're up. And then we'll get to the paramedics, and then, I don't know if Nyack's here. I don't see Nyack. Oh, Nyack right there in the back, all right. The good news is we won't have to stop for anyone, everyone's here.
it's not even 8:15.
No, yeah.
Mr. Supervisor, Town Board, my name is Pete Romisher. I'm Deputy Chief and Treasurer of South Orangetown Ambulance Corps. I'm joined here today by Steve Harris, Chief of the Operations, and Kenny Greenblatt, President and Chairman of the Board. The quick state of the Corps, 2018, we responded to over 2,400 calls for service. Year-to-date, 2019, two-thirds of the way through, we're up to 1,500 responses. Our fleet includes 3 van front Type 1 walk-through ambulances, 1 international MCI-type vehicle, and 2 first response vehicles. The greatest assets that we have are people, the Ellie Salmons of the world, the Steve Harrises of the world, our younger members serving in operational positions, our board members, training positions, and youth division advisors. We've maxed out the capacity of our current headquarters and training facility. To better serve the EMS needs of the town, we're continuing our expansion plans on our neighboring property at 58 Independence Avenue. Our local architect, Kier Levesque, and our attorney, Don Brenner, submitted applications to the building department to hopefully, once approved, be in a better strategic position to house additional fleet vehicles and equipment needed to meet the current and future EMS needs of the town. We've listened, we've continued to listen to the politically correct term is clients or our patients, their families, your constituents on the services that we provide. We transport to Nyack, Good Sam, Pascack Valley, Westchester, Inglewood Hospital, but a segment of our clients today have successfully campaigned the Corps to add Valley Hospital in Ridgewood to where we transport to. So we listen, cuts down on complaints to us, hopefully it cuts down on the complaints that you guys get as well. Our community outreach and CareLink programs were successful with our elementary students at William O. Schaefer, the Magnet of Life program at Brightview. You'll see us standing by at Veterans Memorial Park for the Friday night concerts, for the Santa runs. We're at the Gaelic Fields, the Masonic Grounds for the cultural events, Pearl River for July 4th, and the St. Patrick's Day parades. I provided all requested financial documents to Mr. Bensick's office, including the Corps' 2018 year-ended financial statements. I'd like to thank Jeff and his staff for the continued support and guidance. The budget that I'm going to present for 2020, we are asking for no increase from the town, the same $400,000 we've been requesting. Our total operating budget, unfortunately, went over the $1 million mark at $1,007,000, but because of your constituents and the way we run the revenue recovery program, $607,000 will be kicked in from insurance billings to keep the cost to the town at the $400,000. So net, no increase to the town. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, Town Board. Happy to answer any questions now or offline later. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions.
All right.
I can't remember the last time you guys came in
No,
and
it's-
asked for an increase.
I think
I
it's
think
been
it's
at least
been-
10 years, I think, 15 even.
I don't remember one the whole, for the 10 years I've been on this board.
We all just got our school tax bills and, you know, we're consumers as well, so
God bless
Thank
you.
you.
thinking of everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, Rockland Paramedics, you are next up in the hopper.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, Town Board members. My name is Ray Florida. I'm the Executive Director of Rockland Paramedic Services. With me is our CFO, Mark Siegelman. We also have provided Mr. Bensick and the Comptroller's Office with all of our financial statements, audited financials. As you know, Rockland Paramedic Services provide 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week services, advanced life support services, along with our partners, South Orangetown Ambulance Corps, Pearl River Ambulance Corps, the Piedmont Fire Department, and other EMS providers, Newark Ambulance Corps. In 2018, we responded with our partners for an average of 8.5 minutes response time, which is well below the national average. We also have implemented cost-cutting policies and procedures because of increases, salary increases, contribution to 403B plan, reduction in sick and vacation time. We were able to maintain our budget last year. However, this year, we purchased a new vehicle for the paramedics to respond in. The vehicle was beyond its useful life. We also are in the process of purchasing the latest state-of-the-art cardiac EKG machine so that we can transmit to the hospitals and so on. We're also planning on providing additional training for active shooter training. We have a tactical medical support unit that goes out with the county SWAT team. So fortunately, we've gotten some, thanks to Supervisor Day and the other town supervisors, we were able to get some support from the county on that. So that program is still in existence. We're asking for a modest 4% increase. I know South Orangetown's a tough act to follow, but you know, we also have our medic unit and our medic station that needed some maintenance and repairs and so on. And we also have paramedics now that are finding out that raising families is not as cheap as when they were single guys and gals. So we're asking for that modest increase.
Great.
That's it.
Questions for the paramedics? No? Thank you, Ray.
Thank you so much.
Great. And last but certainly not least, Nyack Ambulance Corps.
Good evening, Supervisor and Town Council. Willie White, our training officer, accompanies me, William McDowell, tonight. Thank you for your time. Just want to start with our fund balance total currently is $661,562 spread out between 3 specific funds: new building, capital improvement, new ambulance, and capital equipment. Our 2020 budget is a requested 1.5% increase over 2019 levels. 50% of our budget, as you know, comes from Clarkstown, 50 from Orangetown, so our request to you is $387,198. With our contracted commitment to Rockland Paramedics of $269,794, our 70% give back of our revenue recovery to our district of $232,405 leaves us with a total budget requested for $424,587. Noteworthy, the 2020 budget is 13.5%, $66,762 less than our 2012 budget. With that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Questions for Nyack Ambulance?
Oh, coming in 7.5.
Different than on your sheet,
Okay, we're gonna sort that out. There's a little conflict on the prep numbers we had and what you guys have, but that's cool.
387,198. So
That's right, 387,188 is 50% of our request. That's half of our budget, our total budget.
right.
Right.
But then you said 424.
Where's that?
Well, that's with Rockland Paramedics included. So yes, Nyack Ambulance is $387,198,000. Rockland Paramedics is $269,794,000. and then you deduct $232,405 for revenue recovery, leaves our total budget request $424,587. But that's the RPS end as well. Actually, the actual cost of Nyack Community Ambulance to the town of Orangetown is $154,793. The additional $269,794 is our contract with Rockland Paramedics to come in and cover Nyack, South Nyack, and Grandview.
Gotcha.
That's the difference. Okay?
Thank you very much.
You're very
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. So we are about to get started. So do I have a motion to open the public hearing with regards to Ryerson Estates?
Moved.
Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Troy. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so first we'll have a presentation from the applicant. This is an application for, oh, I'm sorry, before we get to that, we want to summarize a couple things. Town clerk, has everything been published and such and posted? No, it's all right, as long as you have them. If you're saying we got them, we trust you. Okay, who's that? That's here. And Rob, you had some things related to this as well.
Yes, so the board, in anticipation of the hearing, distributes this to various entities, the application, for their comment. We received several comments. I'll just summarize them. They're all available with the packet that's outside and online on the town's website. The Town of Orangetown Planning Board reviewed the matter, did not object to the town board serving as lead agency, but had two concerns. First, they note the proposal is for high-density housing, which is not compatible with the surrounding area. Second, they note the board strongly, meaning the planning board, strongly suggests that the town board examine previous planning board decisions in regard to the discovery of dinosaur footprints and fossils and delineate those areas on the site in which they were found. We have something from Rockland County Highway, which is somewhat standard language, but again, that's available. The town of Clarkstown was notified of this application due to its location being near Clarkstown. They indicate that the Clarkstown Planning Board has no objection to the town of Orangetown being lead agency. However, they are concerned with overutilization and the impact of traffic on Route 303, and they note this proposal will be more appropriate in the Hamlet Center.
I do want to just say, that's kind of a power move there for the people that got like 200 units of condos 100 feet north, for them to tell us to worry about what we're doing, but okay.
I'm just telling you.
I know. I'm not shooting the messenger, but damn, that's a real, like, bold step on them to weigh in on us overdeveloping when Clarkstown's right there with all their condos, but okay.
August 21st, 2019 letter from the Rockland County Department of Planning. Their first note, I'll just summarize this. There have been many applications with respect to this property over the years. I know Dr. Paul Olson, who's going to speak here tonight, I understand, has reviewed many of the applications, and county planning suggests that basically he be consulted, so he's here.
We're doing that.
So that addresses that.
All right.
There are several other comments, including check with the town of Clarkstown. Again, about a few comments about the dinosaur tracks, and one of the previous proposals had suggested a kind of Jurassic Park type situation, maybe in the area where they were found, but again, that's something to come up. And then a few other technical issues that the applicant would need to tidy up. And I guess the most significant one, number 13, says the town of Orangetown must do a comprehensive analysis of the site to determine if other parcels should also be rezoned to the MFR zoning district. We have county sewer, which again has more technical details. Jane Slavin from obviously the director of the town's building department did a letter dated today. It's 3 pages, has many, again, technical comments on a few items that the applicant will need to look at. She has 4 questions that should be considered. Would the uses permitted in the proposed zone change be appropriate in the area concerned? Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of the use of the land? How will future development affect traffic volumes and patterns along Route 303, North Greenbush Road and surrounding neighborhoods? And will future development impair the quality of the existing community? Also part of the packet are some of the previous planning board comments and decisions with respect to the property, which I'm sure the applicant will get into or will come up during the hearing. And one last thing that was brought to my attention by Councilman Divany ahead of time, the entity disclosure law, I was reading through it. When an LLC comes in, they have to fill out a form. It's called an entity disclosure form about the members of the LLC. I don't know if that was done in this case. I'm assuming it was not. If it was, please submit it. If it was not, we should do that. The reason it was probably missed, if you look at the law, 95% of it has to do with land use applications, so it's through the building department.
Right.
This was direct to the town board, so the applicant should submit that if it hasn't done it already.
Okay. Very good. And that's all for the external comments?
Right, and again, all that is available both outside and online.
Very good. All right, so again, right now we are hearing an application for a zone change for this property. Currently, is split between two zones, and I'm gonna let the applicant explain further detail. The request is to change to essentially a zone that will permit condos. The applicant will present. We unfortunately have Dr. Olson here to give the scientific background on the property, since it's a unique site in that respect, and then we will have public comment within the hearing. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Brodsky and any other associates he has who are here to present. Go ahead, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Town Board. My name is Donald Brenner. I'm an attorney in Japan, New York, and I represent the applicant. I had, at the previous meeting, given you a kind of preliminary layout of what we're going to talk about. I'm just going to repeat part of it, and then I'm going to work with it. Okay, so I think best way of handling it would be, I'll start it, and then we'll go into it. The property which the zone is being considered for a zone change is located in the hamlet of Blowood. It is on the east side of Route 303. You can see from the drawing. South of the town of Clarkstown, Orangetown boundary line is west of North Greenbush Road and north of Ariflex. That's one of the commercial businesses that is on Route 303. It is designated on the Orangetown tax map as Section 65.15, Block 1, Lot 1, and it's presently divided into two zones, an LO zone on the western portion and an R40 zone in the eastern portion. And if you take a look at, there's going to be, no, I want to get the light. Is this a light? This one? Okay. If you take a look very carefully, that's Route 303. The entrance is coming out right at the street over here where FedEx is, that's best known. This is Greenbush Road, North Greenbush Road. This exit over here will not be used. This exit is primarily as an emergency use, which every fire department is used for these kind of complexes. Several developers have attempted to develop the parcel, a car dealership in 1999, a land developer who proposed an 80,000 square foot commercial building connecting to Route 303, coupled with 9 town housing units connected to the Greenbush Road in 2009. And that is the subdivision which we will show you a picture on later on. That is the subdivision that had 9 units going off on Greenbush Road, the commercial building on Route 303, and that was the subdivision where the applicant at that time said he was going to donate a certain period of land, which we called Jurassic Park. I do want to show you that this applicant will be donating this large tract of land over there. It will be donated to the town of Orangetown, and the amount of donation exceeds the amount of donation that was going to be placed in Jurassic Park. The applicant proposes to construct 68 condominium units facing Route 303 with an entrance and exit at an existing traffic light located at the intersection of Al Foxy Way and Route 303, and that is the that is the location that we're talking about, right over here where the traffic light was. You again will be shown later on the original commercial layout that was approved had an entrance over here which traffic-wise, which is not exactly the best spot. This is a perfect spot, and I have a traffic engineer with me tonight who will explain it to you. The design shows a buffer area between the proposed units and North Greenbush Road, and this land will be deeded to the town of Orangetown. The property is presently non-productive and does not provide much-needed tax revenue to the town and to the school district. And I think if you see what happened to South Orangetown this day, you'll see the great increase, both the commercial and the residential increase in their school tax. In 2019, the property paid a tax receiver $40,000. Based on a similar tax levy against similar units in the town, the tax income per unit is estimated to be $15,000, netting an income of $1,020,000. That's going from $40,000 to $1,020,000. The town code MFR district would enable the developer to build the number and type of units necessary to construct the project. The transfer is in accordance with sound planning and so-and-so, because remember, this area is highly residential, this area is highly commercial, and this would be an excellent buffer in terms of between the highly commercial and the residential. And one of the things in our last hearing, people were very upset because they did not want anything coming out on North Greenbush Road. There will be no traffic on North Greenbush Road at all. And I think right now what I would like to do is I'd like to have the developer, Mr. Brodsky, explain his subdivision to you, explain what he wants to do. I will then put the traffic man on, and then I'll get into the elements.
Thank you, Don.
How do you use this? Oh, I got it.
You got it? Good.
Hi. I can't talk that well tonight. I got something wrong with my throat, so I'm going to do the best I can. All right?
Well,
Try to
talk
Okay.
into the...
Try to stick by the podium because the mic
Okay,
projects.
sorry about that. All right. Again, I'm Bill Brodsky. As Don said, what my goal for the property was, right from the very beginning, was to understand the concerns of the people on North Greenbush Road. And instead of having as a prior, can you do me a favor? Can you go back into the main frame? Go to previous application 2. 2? Yeah. This area right here, this is Route 303, this is Greenbush Road. These are the townhouses. I couldn't fit it all on, it was too big a map. So these 9 townhouses were originally going to be proposed to go out onto Greenbush Road. And then this is all an industrial use right in here, all right? And my feeling was, after speaking to a lot of the people on Greenbush Road, can you go back to the original one I just had? So there's the townhouses right there, and this is the rest of the industrial.
You can see this other one?
Yeah, go back to rendering plan 2, right there. So what my goal here was to take this entire area right here and keep this green without any access of, onto Greenbush Road. I was going to take everything, put it right at the light, and take 68 townhouse units, condominium townhouse units. The zoning would have permitted me, if I'm permitted to get a zone change, to get about 77 or 78. But when I originally went in to talk to the residents, I gave my word that I wouldn't go beyond 68. So I stayed at the number I originally went in at. So we're proposing to do the 68 units all right within this area right in here. All right, can you, one of my main interest in the entire subdivision, can you go down to, let me, go to townhouses.
This one?
Yeah. Okay. This is primarily what I'm proposing to build. One of the things, and one of the most important things, I've heard a number of times that people don't want this to look like Valley Cottage. There is a number of townhouses in Route 303 in Valley Cottage. They're low-lying, they're made with vinyl siding, they're built poorly, the positioning was poor, and I did not want this to be built in Orangetown. The units that I'm proposing to be built here, I think, I hope that everybody would agree that they're well-designed by the architect, but more importantly, I'll be building all of the units with hardy board, which is a concrete composite, AZAC board, which is pretty much a plastic. The roof here and the roof here, I'll be building with a metal roof, and the remaining portions I'll do with a 30-year architectural roof at the top. So what we try to do here is design a well-designed, well-built, that will stand the course of time in Orangetown. So this is what my interest was to do. My interest was to build something that's attractive, well-built, and also with the concerns of the people on Greenbush Road. So ultimately, that's where we're at with everything. Can you do me a favor?
You want to tell them the size of the units and things like that?
Okay. Actually, you can go into, you see, it says, I don't know what happened to the rest of them. Let's see, it says second floor right there.
Yep.
There should have been a first floor.
There's also a first floor on the top.
It's at the
I saw the
top?
file. yeah.
Okay. So these are essentially the units. One of the major interests here was I will not go beyond 2 bedrooms in there. There are approximately about 2,200 square feet per unit. They're all 2 bedrooms. They have a family room downstairs, 2-car garage. Then they have a living room, a dining area, and a kitchen upstairs. And then there's 2 bedrooms. The laundry area is in the upper floor, and then there's 2 bathrooms upstairs as well.
This is a cluster of 4
Right.
townhomes.
Ours will have a cluster of 8.
Okay.
All right, but this is just showing, they're staggered, all right? I didn't want them to look like a row house straight across. There's a lot of thought went into what we were doing and how we were doing it. So this is essentially what we'll be building within the community.
Can you go to the first floor one also,
Yeah.
so we can see that? To the top there.
See, it says first floor.
So that's the garage, and then,
Right.
no? Oh, okay.
Did you hit ground floor?
This is first floor, so this is above the garage.
Right,
and
so this is,
below the
okay.
bedrooms.
So this right here is the kitchen area.
Okay.
This is the dining area, and this is the living area. All right, this is the staircase that brings you up and down. All right, and then this is a pantry. If you go downstairs, if you go to the upper floor where we were just now, second floor. Let's go to second floor. So this is the master, and this is the other bedroom. There's a bathroom over here. This is where the laundry area is over here, and then there's another bathroom right over here. So there's 2 bathrooms, a laundry area upstairs, and 2 pretty decent-sized bedrooms upstairs. We're not going to go beyond a 2-bedroom unit. That's all we're going to ask for. And we'll be presenting this exact same thing if, as, and when we move forward with this process. Can you go back? No, we're good. Actually, the ground floor. This is the ground floor. We have a 2-car garage. We have a family room. This is the staircase that leads you in from the outside. This is the front door. This is the stairway that takes you from the garage area and brings you up to the first floor. And all we really have here is the garage, a family room, and a bathroom over here with some storage. This is all built on a slab. Can you go back? Right to Pastures Crossing Paleontology area.
You want to do it now? I was going to put the traffic
No,
man on, and then I...
I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say. So what we did here is we have our proposal with the already cited dinosaur or perhaps dinosaur tracks that are in this area. All right, we'll go into that in greater depth once Dr. Olson speaks. But as you can see, all of the tracks are left in the open space. There's a small area over here that we'd have to address, and we'll address that when Dr. Olson speaks and how we're going to address that with the board. I just wanted to bring this to the attention so everybody understands that we have this already cited within our community and how it reflects into our community. But as I said, we'll discuss that when Dr. Olson gets up. Okay?
What's the grade?
I'm sorry.
What's the grade?
The grade?
Those that would be against the hill and the ones down, there's a hill there.
Yeah,
So-
that's a good question. Pretty much, this is where, see this hatched area right here? This is where the greatest drop is within the property, all right? Then it begins to grade down. What we'll end up having is back in this area back here and in the front area here, the bottom floor will have 4 foot of fill. Then the window will be there. And then are these little areas in here are small patio areas, all right? So that the resident could come out, sit outside in a small patio.
So it'd be kind of going into the hills, what you're saying? So
It's not really into the hill. It's where we're proposing this is pretty flat.
Okay.
All right, it has a slight grade change from here into this area over into here. And then it's really flat right in here. But right in here, I'd say it's about a 4 to 6 foot grade change. The grade change, the large grade change is right in here. What happens is there's about a 40-foot differential from here to here. You won't see any of the roofs in this area right here. The first time you'll really begin to pick up a roof is really right in here. And that's really in this area right in here is where Buttermilk Falls is, and Buttermilk Falls is part of the park system. So most of the residents that live in this area, or all the residents, if you live over here, you might see the sides of these if you look hard, all right? But anybody that's in this area will not be able to really see most of these units here. And that, again, was exactly what I was trying to achieve here. Leaving this whole area unencumbered by what was happening over here and not bringing any proposed within the R40 zone. So I'm trying to keep it all on Route 303, away from all the residents that live on Greenbush Road. So that was my goal when I proposed this whole zone change.
Okay, well, I guess my question is that the ground floor, the garage will be underground, and the patio is gonna come off the first floor of the building?
The patio will come off the first floor. Because it's a 4-foot differential,
Okay.
all right, you won't have much more than about 8 stairs to get to the patio.
Oh, it's a step-down patio. Okay.
It's a step-down
That makes
patio,
sense.
and there's a small, like,
That's where the
it'll be
confusion
like a 4 by 6 foot deck, but it's not really a deck. It's just a stair that you can come out to walk yourself down to get to the patio.
Okay.
But the differential, and that was a thought process for us as well. We didn't want to put a great burden on the resident to have them walk down a full flight of stairs. So they're only going to be, a full flight of stairs on an 8 or 9 foot is usually anywhere from 13 to 15 risers. All right, in this particular case, we'll only have about 8. And then they'll just be on the patio right there. And then really, the only thing that will be behind them is the open space.
Do you want to, did you want to go through the uses, or is that going to be later on, that the current uses is approved, or, Don, were you doing that, or? is no one
I
going to
just
do that?
wanted, just to supplement, this is going to adhere to the overlay zone. People are always understanding the overlay zone. The strip was left there where the plantings can be done on Route 303, so it's highly probable that even when you're driving down 303, you're not going to see the subdivision, which I think is very, very
So that space will be filled in with greenery?
This whole area right here will be done the same way back here. It'll be about a 4 foot, when you come out, of cover on the rear of these. And then this will be a berm higher than that 4 foot. And this entire area from here to here will be vegetated. We will hire a professional landscape architect and have them come down.
Well, this has to go before the boards anyway.
Of course.
But the statement is being made to the town board, we will adhere to the overlay zone.
Sure, and we could always make that a condition, obviously. Question, really, I'm sure everyone will have the question, the units, I understand they're being proposed for sale, not rental. What do you expect them to sell at, and are you intending to do any sort of subsidized Section 8 type stuff, or is it just gonna be all market rate sort of stuff?
I'm not proposing to do any Section 8 housing in there.
Okay,
It's all market rate, and they'll start at around $499.9.
$499, okay. Are you doing it in phases?
I'd like to do it, since if we're proposing to do this in 68 units, I'd like to do it in 2 phases. This will be phase 1, this will be phase 2. This area right in here, all right, is where the sewer and is right now. It's in Clarkstown. The only way that I can get sewer going downhill is to tie into the Clarkstown sewer system, which is the county sewer system. I've already worked that out with Clarkstown. I can hook into their system. What I could do is that when I bring it up into this area, because I'm going to be bringing it all through here, so when I get to the phase 2, I'll already have had most of my utilities into here, because I need to bring them from here. Same with the water, all right? I'll be bringing everything right in through here. The only area that has to be done in here, in large part, for phase 2, is I'll have to pave it. Put the curbs in and pave it. But all the utilities will be brought in. And all the utilities are under all of my control, because on top of being a builder, I'm also an excavator. So I own all my own machinery. So we'll bring in everything over here. This is the detention pond right in here, all right? And again, my interest is to try to work with the town and the paleontologist on trying to work this through, to try to figure out how the best way to get this addressed and any other concerns that the town may have.
Okay.
Right. You want to go into the...
I want to get certain elements done, all right? I want to, okay. For the record, I have Mr. Peter Rossello here. He is with Mazer Engineering. He's the traffic consultant. I would like him to speak about it because that was one of the questions that was of interest to the town as to the traffic effect of this subdivision onto Route 303. Peter?
Good evening, Mr. Day, Supervisor Day, and members of the board. My name's Pete Russell. I'm a project manager with Mazer Consulting. It just so happens that I personally designed this intersection about 7 years ago when FedEx was going in.
You know what you're talking about with the intersection.
With the intersection,
Okay.
the left turn lane for the entrance as well as the signal. I was asked to take a look at what kind of traffic generation we could expect for a 68-unit townhouse development. And it winds up that in the morning, you'd have about 35 vehicles total and generated by it, of which obviously most of them would be leaving in the morning. And in the afternoon, that number goes up to around 45, of which most of those would be arriving in the afternoon. It's split about 15% in one direction and 75, 80% in the other direction. And it just flips AM to PM. Now, if you were to look at what would be generated under the existing zoning, those numbers would almost be double. So, you know, assuming about a 50,000 square foot commercial establishment. So this use is a less intense use from a traffic perspective.
Traffic purposes, you mean?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Now, also, the ability to accommodate the improvements that would be required would mean you'd have the southbound left turn lane would have to be installed. A modification to the traffic signal would have to occur. There may be an additional crosswalk that would go in. A lot of that, though, will come under the permitting of the New York State Department of Transportation. They would have the final say in anything that's being done within the right-of-way.
Okay.
So.
Very good.
Good, all right. Okay. Just for the record, this has to be placed in. Water will be supplied by Suez. The sewer, as was mentioned before, will come from the town of Clarkstown, and then ultimately will go into the Rockland County Sewer District. Gas and electric is to be provided by Orange and Rockland Utilities. The police department will be able to service this area, and the fire department will be for the Blowville Fire District.
Square footage, front yard setback, your rear yard setback. But the use tables, all right, tells you exactly what you're allowed to use, or you can get special conditions from either the town board or the planning board. This is the yellow zone, all right? And this column, if you go back, all right, if you go back, you'll see on the first page, this is uses permitted by uses permitted by right. This is an absolute that has to be followed by all the boards of the town of Orangetown. The town of Orangetown cannot tell the applicant that they cannot put one of these on here because this is the uses. This is more of a discretionary by the town, but this is not discretionary. This is what has to be put on if the applicant comes in. I'm not asking for any of this because I'm asking for a zone change. But as you can see, as number one, it says fire, police, and community-owned ambulance stations, government offices and offices, buildings, town garages, municipal parking, and similar public buildings and government uses. That's number one. Number two, schools of general instructions. This is, remember, this is the LO. This is right on Route 303. So you could put a school on Route 303. Executive conference, lectures, facilities, business professional offices, research, experiment, and, can't read that. Testing, labs, subject to performance standards, procedures, and additional uses. So in large part, what is happening here is that this is a property that's zoned for offices and some light warehousing. All right, that's what you could do here, and a school. So that's what you're permitted by right now, must be permitted on this property.
And that's that portion, and there's the other portion, which has how many homes permitted?
Well, I'm gonna get to there.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. So now we have, see this, the other part is zoned R40 use table. I wanted to show this for one reason. This is a uses permitted by right, like in the LO. Here's R40. It says number one, same as R80 except number 2C, and we'll get to 2C. So we gotta go to R80 now. Okay, this is gonna be real hard for me to read.
I'm gonna zoom in and out, should you there?
All right, so number one says what everybody would think of when you talk about a residential zone, single-family, detached, oh, good, residences. And that's number one. Number two, the following commercial agricultural operations, but remember, it said no 2C, and I'll get to that in a second. So the following commercial agricultural operation, provided that there shall be no greenhouse, heating plant where coal is used for fuel, stables or similar animal housing or of storage of manure and other odor or dust producing substances or uses, except spraying or dusting to protect vegetation within 200 feet or of any lot line. Number A says nurseries, greenhouses, growing of mushrooms, provided that no smokestacks shall exceed the height regulations. B says orchards, trucks, gardening, and growing of field crops, and vineyards and growing of other bush or berry crops. C, which is not permitted under, from the transfer of our 80 zone, keeping, breeding, training, and raising of sheep, goats, pigs, and horses, and rental of horses on lots of 10 acres or more, including accessory training tracks and restricted under general accessory uses. Personally, I think this was built or put in for another time, not today. Number three, churches and similar places of worship, Sunday school buildings, parish houses, and rectories. All different types of house of worship can go within number three. Number four, libraries and similar community facilities. Number five, public parks and playgrounds. Number six, schools of general instruction, schools of religious instructions. That can be done in an LO and an R40. Conversion of detached owner-occupied single-family dwellings so as to add one additional dwelling unit clearly subordinate to the main one-family use to occupy no more than 600 square feet floor area subject to paragraph 4.5. Telephone exchange, fire, police, and community-owned ambulance stations, government offices, office buildings, town garages, municipal parking lots, and similar buildings and governmental uses. All of that is mandated by this code that the applicant must be able to get when they come in. The other ones over here is within the discretion of the town, and I'm not going to get into all of that, all right? But I'm just telling, this is what you can do in the R40 zone right now, all right? So what I just wanted to do was to review the zone, the existing zone, and exactly what you can do within the existing zone. So everybody understands what the existing zone will permit to happen.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, I'm not really finalizing, but I do want to say certain things. The site location is a favorable one because it's fully accessible to public transportation as well as individual vehicles. The size of the parcel conforms to the town regulations, and again, 45% of the acreage will be given to the town of Orangetown. 40? Okay, I'm sorry, 40%. Okay? As I mentioned before, there's going to be water, there's going to be sewer. As for the school district, we actually presented you with a letter from the South Orangetown School District saying that they recommended the project. It's in that book which I gave you. In fact, the superintendent of the school district is here, if you want to speak to him. Okay? The tax benefits, as I showed, is very, very favorable, and it is something that, number one, that the area can use, properly developed, that it's going to work out probably well. It will bring new students to the district, which it's looking for, and it will provide sewer service to areas which have lacked that kind of service in this particular area. I think what we'll do now is we'll rest, unless the board has specific questions that they'd like to ask, and then listen to the public.
Thank you. Is there any questions for the applicant before we get to both our paleontologist and also the public? Any questions from the board? All right. Thank you. We reserve the right to call you back for specific questions. Fortunately, I was able to reach out. We got in touch with Dr. Paul Olson from Columbia. He is a paleontologist. He is the one who did the initial review of this site about 10 years ago, or more now, I think. So it's the perfect person to talk about it. It addresses some of the concerns from adjacent agencies. It also addresses a concern that we have, and that I'm sure some residents have, about what's on the site, what could be done with it, its significance, et cetera. So I'll turn the floor over to Dr. Olson whenever you're ready to go.
Supervisor Day, Board, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm a 30-year resident of Piermont, during which time I've been for 37 years at the Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory in Palisades. So I was raised in New Jersey and born in New York City. I was the person, along with my friend Robert, who discovered the fossils off Cross 303 in Blauvelt, and I'd like to tell you the facts of that discovery and what remains today. I'll try to move through this fairly quickly because I know you have other things you might want to do. All right, forward is not working. Let's try it. This one. So I'm going to address 6 points here, which I'll go through one by one quickly. First of all, what is the context of the Blauvelt finds? That is, why are we interested in this, and what's their age, and so forth. So I always use this icon with my undergraduates to give you an idea of geological time. This is a carbonated beverage of your choice. Along here is all of Earth's history, 4.6 billion years. This part up here is the part of all multicellular life. That's expanded here next to the beer glass in proportion. The age of mammals is this foam area here. Our human existence is the glint on the edge of the glass. All the rest is the history of multicellular life going back 540 or so million years. Multicellular life begins here, and the last non-avian dinosaurs, those are not birds, disappeared 66 million years ago, and our Blauvelt finds were 215 million years ago at the beginning of the age of dinosaurs in the Triassic, not the Jurassic. At that time, all the continents were united in the supercontinent of Pangaea. It straddled the equator, and New Jersey and New York were about at about 18 to 15 degrees north latitude. The continents began to move apart, producing a giant rifting zone as North America moved away from Africa and South America. And in that zone, we have this bunch of sedimentary deposits going from Nova Scotia in the east coast down to South Carolina, and in the other side in Morocco, where our sister basins are. This was a rift system comparable to East Africa today in scale, and we're sitting right at the northern edge of this one called the Newark Rift Basin. The geology of this area has been known for a very, very long time. The red units you see here in the topography are lava flows and gigantic intrusions of igneous rock, of magma. A cross-section through this basin shows a big fault system on the western side running through Booton and Suffern. It opened like a trap door as the crust stretched, and thousands of feet of subsidence was filled with sediments. And our little site in Blauvelt is in this area here, right against this red zone, and over here in cross-section. And of course, that red zone is the famous Palisade Sill, this giant intrusion of magma that occurred about 200 million years ago, injected into the previously existing sediments. That's shown here in red in a little bit more realistic cross-section. This is a cross-section near Weehawken. Manhattan is over here. Here's the Palisades Ridge. And here are sediments that have been injected by this hot molten lava. And here's a cross-section actually at Blauvelt, produced by the United States Geological Survey, and the Blauvelt site is right here with these layers of sediment dipping to the west, producing a hill on the east side of the proposed site against this huge intrusive mass. So here's a view of that site. This is Route 303 here. Here is Green Bush Road. This is area of open bedrock. A lot of that is filled in since 2008 when this Google image was produced. The rock is still there, though it's just hidden by the canopy of the trees. The variety of red dots, these are all sites of various fossils in there, and I'll fill you in on what that is. So what was found and where is it now? This was the discovery surface. This was on the east side of the property, pardon me, against that berm that exists just to the west of Greenbush Road. These whitish areas are sandstone that filled in dinosaur footprints. Here was one of those footprints where I poked the sandstone out of that. These were, at the time, the first remains of footprints thought to be of dinosaurs ever found in New York State. They were taken by the New York State Museum up to Albany. Here I am preparing them. They were mounted in a plastic slab. We're recording, this is my friend Robert, also a Rockland County resident.
This was when, by the way?
1972, and I forgot to mention I've been doing this for 51 years.
Okay.
Since 1968. When I was a teenager, thank you. A few years there. So we recorded this and documented by tracing off this grid. Here is the slab as it exists now with all these three-toed footprints all over it. This is a render drawing of that slab. And here it is on exhibit in the main plaza in the interior of the state buildings in Albany, New York, where it can be seen to this day, and it's part of the New York State Museum exhibits. The footprints are these three-toed things that you can see here. Each one of these has a circle around it. This is one that is still in place, and this is another one still in place that's a little bit faint. Now, it turns out that the bulk of these footprints are probably not actually of dinosaurs. We thought they were at the time, but we know better now. This is an example of one that's in place. It's quite well preserved. It takes a low-level light to see it. Otherwise, it's really quite hard to find. And any of you have been out there looking for those footprints, I bet you didn't find any. Anybody out here who looked for them? Couldn't find them, could you? It takes an oblique light to see them. If you don't have an oblique light, if it's cloudy or if it's vertical light, they are virtually invisible. So this was this was a photograph taken in the early morning when it had nice oblique light. This is a footprint from Grandview. This is one from Pennsylvania. This is a little hand footprint of this rear foot. These are not dinosaurs, but very close relative of dinosaurs. I think we can call them proto-dinosaurs. There are footprints on the site that could be dinosaurs, but they're not as well preserved as this and don't show the traits as clearly. What these creatures were these quadrupedal animals. This was a reconstruction I did in 1986 when we only had the footprints, but subsequently the actual skeletons were were found, and it ended up being rather similar. This is from 2012, and these are called silosaurs, and they're proto-dinosaurs. They're not quite dinosaurs. They differ in a variety of anatomical features, but there were dinosaurs around at the time. Something like this is a form that gave rise to all dinosaurs and ultimately birds, and you see this artist has clothed it in feathers, which is quite plausible. We don't know that for a fact. Why is this not moving now all of a sudden? Oh, wait, I think I got it. No? No. Okay. No? Da, 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 da.
Oh, you went to the page, that's what it is.
Ah, I see.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. All right. So these are drawings of the various footprints from this area. This is an example of a plausible dinosaur foot from Haverstraw, one from Upper Nyack. These are from Blauvelt, and as I said, proto-dinosaurs as opposed to true dinosaurs. This is a true dinosaur footprint from Nyack Beach State Park. It's very small. It's about 2.5 inches in length. It was the size of a chicken, and that was the way dinosaurs were at the time. The proto-dinosaurs were somewhat larger. Those small dinosaurs would have looked like this, Coelophysis, and the footprint I just showed you is actually one of the better examples of footprints from Rockland County of dinosaurs. There are other kinds of footprint presents, quadrupeds. These are really pretty awful footprints, but they are from this site, the Blauvelt site, and I wanted to illustrate them. They were made by a variety of different kinds of quadrupeds, crocodile-like forms, top carnivores, and plant eaters, all of which had rather similar feet. There are other kinds of fossils present. These are burrows of clawed animals that are present on the site. They're very unusual, although probably more common than normally thought. Was there legitimate publicity about this? And by legitimate publicity, I mean sincere efforts at trying to report what was there. At the time of the discovery, yes, there was. This is a lovely front page of the Journal News in 1972. Love this headline. 1,000% behind him. The Journal News reported accurately what was found there. Here I am working on the actual tracks, but it was carried nationally. This is the New York Times in 1973 with the same kind of reporting, and there was quite a bit of publicity here. There were several hundred articles that appeared over a year or so. What remains on site and what more can be found? All the dots in this bedrock area represent fossils that are still there, some of them more interesting than others. These footprints are still on site. This burrow is on site. Roots and things, mud cracks and various other sedimentary features are there, which make it of considerable educational and scientific merit. Are the finds documented scientifically? Yes, they are. These are 4 papers. I've written several others that are published in scholarly places that document the occurrence of these fossils, and I'm not the only one who have reported on these. The New York State Museum wrote a little pamphlet about it. They got, at the time, the dinosaur wrong, but that wasn't known. It was state-of-the-art at the time, but now we know that these particular footprints were probably proto-dinosaurs, although real dinosaur footprints are actually, they're just not very well preserved. Is there ongoing research? Yes, there is. I'm writing a book right now that includes the results from these discoveries, and there are other people working on the site. Here's an undergraduate from Geneseo College, and he's using 3D rendering techniques to make digital models of these footprints in Albany. And he produced this beautiful poster showing those digital renderings, and it's much better than the little sketches and outlines I did. Very, very accurate and beautiful rendering. So in conclusion, on the facts of this site, the footprints date from about 215 million years ago. There are several different kinds of tracks of proto-dinosaurs and other reptiles, tracks and other interesting traces such as reptile burrowed remain, as well as mud cracks, ripple marks, and other sedimentary features. While some of what has been found is documented in the scientific literature, there's much to do, and it's an excellent educational and scientific research. And I'd be happy to take questions, or unless you want to move back to the discussion of the site itself. Thank you.
A few key questions that are pertinent. So one, is there any sort of agency that has stepped in or would step in for this property to preserve it in any fashion related to the dinosaur tracks? Or is it just private property?
There are no regulations governing fossils at all in state of New Jersey or New York. This whole area doesn't have any sort of control over that. It's private property. In fact, I have to say that the landowners have been incredibly lenient and permissive of the research that occurred because they don't have to do that.
True, right. Other question would be, let's say hypothetically, anything, forget this, or something was to be built on this property. Is there a method for you, or you with the support of the town, or you with the support of the town and the eventual builder, to excavate portions to preserve, like that part that went to Albany?
Yeah, so it's quite likely if there's excavation taking place that more fossils will be found. You can't, honestly, in this whole region, you can barely break the ground without finding a fossil of something. But if the excavations proceed, I'm sure it'll be very easy to recover those fossils and put them in an institution where they'll be preserved. That's not a difficult thing to do. The excavation process itself will undoubtedly yield more fossils. It doesn't mean you stop or anything like that. They're recoverable. You wouldn't see them if it weren't excavated. You know, it's the, sort of the cost of doing business.
It's kind of a related question. You had footprints from other, that seemed like they were in Orangetown.
Yes.
The one in Niagara State Park,
Yes.
there was one in Grandview. Are these private
And
property?
Haverstraw.
or-
No, actually, they're not. They're in parks, but they're not, so this is important. All those other footprints that I showed, and actually show you a lot more, none of them can you see in place. They're all boulders, pieces of rock that have been transported already either by natural means or by quarrying operations that were done in the early part of the 20th century or late 19th century. So there's no place you can go other than Blauvelt and see a footprint in place in Rockland County.
Any questions for Dr. Olson?
Dr. Olson, if they're there, they were all over that area. It wasn't specific.
That's correct. They are everywhere. However, what's unusual about that site is the large area of a completely clear bedrock surface that's stable. Because of the cooking of that magma that injected itself into the rocks, that rock is unusually hard and stable. If you move away a little bit, the rock becomes very friable and soft, and a period of 15 years exposed to the elements, destroyed. Not this rock.
I have a question. Looking at the site plan of this applicant, you have the portion, you have your tracks overlaid on it. I don't know if we can get that back up on the screen in some way. Anthony, could you get the one that shows at least is showing the site plan, even if it doesn't go with the dynamo tracks? I want to make sure I'm not talking about the opposite with you and we get confused here.
Any idea which one?
Is it on there? You get a
Basic
map?
site plan.
I'm sorry.
The one
The
that
one that
shows
says,
the outline.
this
of
one
the-
right here, the Pride's Crossing with Paleontology there.
That's it. You can get rid of mine. And by the way, this presentation is yours, it's the town's.
Thank you.
Yours is still up there.
Very interesting also. You obviously are a professor. 'Cause
Yeah, and I could go on for hours.
I'm sure.
Don't get me started.
we'll be going on for hours, it seems, but you can probably head home and get ready for teaching.
Yeah.
No.
That's the wrong
No, you
one.
had it.
Well, like, reset.
There we go.
Ah, there we
Okay.
go.
All right, so on this, I'm assuming though you didn't raise any, those are generally speaking the dots that are most known from the
Yes.
previous time.
Yeah, the dots outline polygons of the largest area of exposed rock. There are other areas, larger areas, especially over here, that I didn't put polygons around because there weren't any fossils. I have to mention that there's a slight discrepancy between the map that I produced in 2008 and this map. I was using 2008 vintage GPS, which had various governmental blocks in it that prevented really high levels of accuracy. Even my iPhone can do much better than that now. But that's what I was dealing with then. So I don't know whether those discrepancies are are what they're due to. Yeah.
You have a question?
Yeah, I have to ask them. I can't
Okay.
ask it.
Okay.
My question is, when Dr. Olson showed most of the area that's shown here, in that map that he showed us of on the overlay, this is, my question for you, Dr. Olson, this was the area where the bedrock was, right?
Yes.
Right. So in large part, this is the area that we want to give as open space, all right? So in large part, except for a couple in here, and this small area in here, this will remain forever untouched, all right? and they can always go back to the bedrock and discover whatever sits within the bedrock.
Even through construction, it's not gonna be.
No, this area is not part of the construction.
You're gonna deed
This
it
area is
parkland
all
us
part of the
before they
parkland.
start construction.
They're not gonna use it for construction and deed, that's what I'm asking.
We're gonna deed it right off the bat to the town of Orangetown,
It's gonna be untouched.
untouched.
Now,
Green forever.
Dr. Olson, the question you're getting to where I was gonna ask, that circle that's kinda in the middle of the road there,
This one?
no, the one to the back more, to the right, sorry. Those there, those
Yes.
dots there, are those are things, do you know off the top of your head what those are, or whether they
Yeah,
can be moved?
they're fossils and mud cracks and ripple marks. They're actually not as significant as what's in this part.
Okay, that's good to know.
And also, I should mention that this distribution of bedrock just represents what is not covered at the moment. If you went in there, you could go in there with a simple shovel and enlarge this area, these areas of bedrock without any difficulty at all. The soil's only a foot thick in places, or even thinner.
Right.
So they're not absolutely fixed at these polygons. And in fact, the original discovery site was in this polygon, and this one has the existing footprints that I know of.
And that's the area that's gonna be
Yes.
turned to parkland, okay.
Yes, and there are undoubtedly in these regions here, other places to look. As you go in this direction, the depth to bedrock increases, and there's nothing known about that. We'll probably find some stuff during excavation, but it's not known now. And these are the stable surfaces.
And you answered this for me when we talked, but you're someone we can reach out to if something were to
Yes,
proceed about
absolutely.
taking
My
care of the
services
site and
are
making sure things are
available
done.
to the town.
Okay, thank you.
Just
Any other
a-
questions?
Just as a note to the town, I was intrigued by what he had to say as well.
Yeah,
I'm all for working with Dr. Olson and trying to preserve what he can, as long as we do it in a way that's advantageous to both of us.
great. Questions also for Dr. Olson anymore while he's up here? I don't want to give him the opportunity to not have to stay the whole time. Yeah, thank you, that was very helpful, so. All right, does the applicant have anything else before we move to the public portion?
I was really not going to summarize. I would like to, I can't summarize, but I think we should
You
hear.
can leave it open, and then we can turn it back to you if we have any more specific questions.
Right.
Okay, so, I'm gonna review the rules, the general gist of it. So basically, what we're considering here for everyone is an application for a zone change. We are not mandated to do it, there's no requirement. However, we are also not considering just turning it all into parkland. This is privately owned land, it is zoned as described. I've reviewed this with our building department, I can tell you the description was accurate, it's LO, and it's 9 houses on R40 in that section. The R40 section generally being the area that's gonna be parkland in this proposal. So what we're considering is whether or not, essentially, this number of condominium units to change to is better than the available uses that could happen by just simple building permit and site plan approval. We wouldn't be involved in those uses. They wouldn't come to the town board, just go to the planning board. So when it gets to public comment, some of the rules for public hearings, you have 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes. You don't have to take the 5 minutes. It's totally cool if you do less, actually. But you have up to 5 minutes. If you get to the 5-minute marker, again, the bell will go off. I just ask you to wrap up your sentence. If you have additional comments you didn't get to, this is an in-writing public comment session as well. They're all going to be considered. That's why we're not voting today. So you're welcome to submit in writing what you're reading off of if you didn't submit in time to the town clerk on your way off the podium, and that will be put into the record and reviewed by the town board. But we want to hear from everyone. Or email us also. You can just email supervisor@orangetown.com or townclerk@orangetown.com, and you'll be able to get those comments in writing. If you think of something afterwards, the public hearing is technically open until we close it and vote or don't vote. It's open from here until we set the next continuation. You can submit them at any time. It doesn't have to be like in the next 20 minutes. You can read from a shared prepared statement. So let's say someone wants to keep reading the same thing into the record, you can if you feel like you want to do that. You cannot yield your time to someone else, though. It's 5 minutes per person. So we can't have someone, yield my time to this, to that, to that, and one person gets 30 minutes to talk. It's just not how it works. It's in the interest of fairness, okay? So if you have a question also, we're not going to break in the middle of your 5 minutes and answer the question unless it's a very obvious yes or no question that like is the crux of whether you're going to talk for another 4.5 minutes. But we'll accumulate them. If it's worthy of speaking about before the next speaker, we'll either ask the applicant to say something or we'll answer it. If not, we'll go on to the end. And remember, you don't even have to say you like it or you don't like it. You can just say what you think, and that all goes into the record. So The first person who signed in, we have, I believe, if I counted right, 30 sign-ins, if everyone chooses to make use of their time. And the first one I can't really read, but it looks like it says Settineni, Settinen is what is written down. All right. Of Japan. Is someone from Japan here? Schinen? Who signed in first? You should be really excited if you signed in first in this list. It's this long of a list and you're the first one. If you're not raising your hand, it's on you. Okay. Wait, is that the person who signed in first? Sorry?
She's not going to speak.
Not going to. Okay, thank you. One down. Okay, next we have Gabriel Guadaramas of Blauvelt.
Good evening. And my name is Dr. Gabriel Guadaramas. I'm a 29-year resident of Blauvelt, and I'd like the opportunity to speak in reference to this. I'm in favor of this local law amendment to Chapter 43, 2.2 of the zoning law for the property in question. I'm also very much in favor of the proposal of the applicant in terms of putting in the housing units and the collaboration that he has with Dr. Olson and the board. I think this is an excellent opportunity for, one, the town to have additional affordable housing for families that want to downgrade in terms of the housing, and or for our children to want to stay in the area. This is an excellent proposal. I'm very much in favor of this. Also, it helps to increase the town's tax base significantly, and it helps our school district. This is a win-win for all of us in question. I'm in favor of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next we have, and again, I apologize if I mangle your name, if just read into the record when you get there. Susan Grice-King or Grice-King, Griceberg?
That's me.
Okay, great. Did you want to say something? If so, you just got to get to the podium.
I'm not going to speak right now, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, God, you're really messing me. This is just a scribble next to the word below. This one's not on me. The fourth person to sign in. It looks like maybe there's a D in there and an ER. Jim of Blauvelt. Signed in after Susan, before Carmen and Alfredo Ramirez. You know who you are. You signed in like you're signing a contract on a sign-in sheet. It's okay. I have bad handwriting too, but I mean. All right. With the doctor who signed in, we'll get back to you if you remember. Next, we have Carmen and Alfredo Ramirez. One or both of you are welcome to come up. Did you want to speak?
I have nothing to say at the moment.
Nothing to say. Okay, good. Then Joanne de Fromena? Joanne. It's definitely Joanne with a D. Okay. Paul Manny, Spark Hill. Paul just left. Lucia DeBaines of Blauvelt, Deeb something?
I didn't hear that.
You're good? Okay. This looks like a lot of people signed in. Something Perez, very fancy script writing. Perez, yes, did you want to speak? Okay. It looks like Luis Val something, Valas? Yes? No? Okay.
Was it
I don't.
a sign-in sheet or was it to come up and speak?
This was to come up and speak.
I don't think people realize that.
Okay. Good. I'm already halfway through. I just don't want to go out of order because some of you may have thought it was a thing to speak. Okay. Gabe Pasquale. Okay. Diane Rossi and Joseph Rossi. Joseph. All right, we got one. And that's why I was going in order, folks, because eventually I would land on someone. I assume this is Joseph Rossi, not Diane.
I hope so.
Okay.
My name is
I
Joe
don't want
Rossi.
to assume anything nowadays, so go ahead.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak on this. Just by way of background, I previously worked for Freddie Mac down in Washington. I know a little bit about multifamily housing. And while I don't have an objection to the concept, I do have some concerns. One of those concerns is really traffic. I've lived in Blauvelt for almost 30 years. There have been many times where 303 was shut down because of some emergency. It's not a big highway. And that means that Greenbush Road is utilized as that secondary access to those properties. I think we need another review of the traffic patterns. Sorry, I got something in my throat. I'm skeptical. I think somebody needs to really take a close look at what is happening on 303 and what that fallout would be into that emergency access road. It's just not believable. Okay, 30 vehicles at any one time? I think we need to take a look at that. The other thing, I just have to say, the reason why we don't have affordable housing in Orangetown, take a look at the taxes. They're outrageous. Okay, this is not going to solve our problem. It will add incrementally to the tax base, but it's not going to solve the problem. It'll still be unaffordable. The problem with the plan, again, is not the concept. It's the density. We all bought homes on 1 acre properties that were required by the town. And suddenly we're making a very, very big change. I would say, again, without the specifics here, we should take a look at it, a very careful look, but it's specifically targeting the traffic problems. There was a fatal accident on a couple of times on Greenbush Road. We have not been able to effect a simple thing like a four-way stop sign on that one road. When we put this amount of density on that property, that traffic patterns in that area will go up, absolutely. Again, a third-party review outside of the consultant's report, I think is needed before we make any decision. Okay. Again, take a look and act boldly. I haven't been to meetings like this before, but the expense base in Orangetown and in our area is very, very high. It's unaffordable because of the taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we'd all agree on that point. The question is how New York changes that for everyone. Next we have, that was Joseph Rossi, Marion Kramer of Blauvelt. Did you want to speak? No? All right, thank you. Mary, and is that Fidel Vero? No comment. No comment, all right. Susan Nemesdi of Palisades, did you want to speak? Susan?
Yeah, hi, I'm Susan Nemesti, I live in Palisades, and I'm here tonight in opposition to the zone change for the proposed 68 townhome development. First of all, the development would be incompatible with the neighboring properties. The 303 corridor is a busy highway with a wide variety of businesses, while Greenbush Road is a single-family residences with lots of at least half an acre, but mostly larger. How is 68 units on 9 acres, or about 7 families per acre, with parking and pavement compatible to either? Most importantly, it would set a precedent in that area. With several large lots available, by changing the zone, it would encourage other developers to try changing the zoning to build other similar housing units. As far as the taxes go, we're already one of the highest tax counties in the entire United States. I got my tax bill also today. I don't want to tell you what it was. Outrageous. If Orangetown needs more tax ratables, then along with the rest of Rockland County, it should focus more on collecting unpaid taxes by the countless fraudsters who go years without paying, and I know several, and partner with our neighboring towns to stop the overdevelopment and fraud now occurring in Ramapo, as well as propose mandate reform and exemption reform for religion, education, and clergy. Our taxes are out of control, and this is not going to solve it. I have no problem with the concept, as the other gentleman said. I think changing the zone is not the way to do it. He should either find a place where the zoning is already multifamily, but if we allow a zone change here, then what's to stop anybody else from going up and down this corridor? And with a possible recession coming, businesses might be closing up, to start, we're gonna turn into another Ramapo with more and more housing developments. And actually, these are $500,000 houses, 2 bedrooms. That's really not affordable housing. I don't know where,
Thank you. One thing I want to touch on, legally speaking, whether or not there's a moral precedent or anything like that, a zone change application does not carry with it any precedent setting. It's a request. So we've had zone changes requested for other properties in the town. We've done zone changes, not this particular type in this spot, but we've done other types of zone changes. You don't actually set a legal precedent. So someone else could come in, each one is heard in its own merits, as long as you're not discriminating on the basis of, race or whatever, then it's not a precedent-setting event. A thing like a variance could be precedent-setting, which would be set by the ZBA, but this is not a precedent-setting sort of thing legally. You can think it's precedent-setting as how the town operates, that's an opinion, but I'll also just touch on the question of collecting. The town's made whole on the small percentage of properties that commit fraud on their taxes every year by the county. The county then collects or then seizes the property. We do not have some sort of large outstanding amount of fraudulent properties that don't pay taxes or contribute to our budget. The town's expenses go up primarily because of the cost of employees under the union contracts, the cost of health insurance, and the cost of workers' comp. Those alone account for almost all of our increase in costs. The personnel alone are, I believe, 75 or 80% of the cost of the budget. 80% of our budget. So I don't mind everyone sharing details. This wasn't our taxes, by the way. We didn't do the school taxes. That was everyone in this room who went to the school board and voted in May. We didn't vote for the school taxes that just went. We just collect them and have to deal with the complaints. But 80% of our expenses are essentially fixed, and there's no pot we're not pulling from. So the town board here is focused on doing responsible budgeting. Forget whether or not there's added tax benefit here or whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm talking about generally speaking, all right? All right. Next we have Anne Marie Uhl from Blauvelt. Anne Marie, are you here? All right.
Thank you. Anne Marie Uhl from Blauvelt. Actually, most of my questions really aren't with the property itself. It's mostly about the resolution that's on the agenda itself, and I just think that even for myself, after reading the resolution, I need a little bit of clarification. But first, let me start with, again, echoing the issue about the traffic. Mostly the entrances and the exits from the property itself, right on Route 303. I don't understand how, the entrances are going to be created, but I do know that even just driving on 303, because this is very close to the Palisades Mall, it is a really big concern. And I know in the past that we've had a traffic committee that used to do studies for us, so I'm just asking if that committee still exists, and if so, will this piece go to the traffic committee for comment? Also, too, during the summary of the external comments, and I know that Supervisor Day also mentioned that the school district has been notified. I'm just curious if the comment that came from the school district will be public for us so that we could take a look at it, so that if we do have questions or concerns with the school district, having that documentation will make it a lot easier for us to go there and ask them questions as well. Also, too, as I was reading through the resolution itself, I really need some clarification, just because as I read through it, it seems like there are inconsistencies or there's juxtapositions, especially when you get down to the part where it talks about the planning board. So it seems that the planning board, from what I read in the resolution, is that they have some real concerns. So I'm just confused as the way the resolution is actually written, and then what the overall resolution would be at the end. I'm specifically talking about when the town board says, when the part with they're making you the lead agency, but it says the proposal for high-density housing, which is not compatible with the surrounding area, and that the planning board strongly suggests that the board examine previous planning board decisions. So to me, it just seems like there's some negative things within the resolution itself, but then at the end, the resolution states that you'll be passing the zoning. So just a little bit of clarification the way that this is written, so I can understand how it's being voted on and what you're considering with the vote. And also, too, I have to also state that though I understand and I believe in the concept itself, that seems like an awful lot of townhouses in one spot. and the density itself just doesn't seem to me feel that we can support that level. So I'm just curious on how that number was reached. I know that there were considerations for more, so I'm just curious how we came to that number. I do have some other questions, but I'm going to submit that to the board separately because I don't want to take up too much more time. Thank you.
Thank you. Real quick, well, I just don't want people to ask the same question.
Yeah, go ahead.
The resolution is a draft. It should have said draft. It incorporates negative things in it by you're supposed to say what the comments are from any unit, right?
Right, and particularly on a application like this, I'll have to admit that I'm the author of the resolution. We put the comments of the county planning in, we put the comments of the Orangetown Planning Board in, so that the board can see it, the public can see it, and it's a thorough review. The reason it's in the form it's in now is it is a draft, and because of the conditions, if the board were to go along with it, that we put in there, it's really a workable document. So the board can see what the proposal would be. If it wants the conditions, it can adopt the conditions. If it wants more conditions, we can add conditions. But it's just due to the nature of this application, we're kind of putting it all out there, so to speak, for discussion tonight, for discussion next time, and changes if there are, if it's going to move forward. So that's why it's in there. And the reason, I know it does seem negative, but that's what the planning board said, so that's why it was, sorry, I don't see the speaker, but but that's why it was put in there.
To add to that, the planning board had some comments that weren't too favorable in front of the project, but they also recognized that zone changes have to come in front of the town board. So that's why they said we can serve as lead agency, because we're the ones that can make that decision. The planning board can't issue a zone change. And that's why, even though they had negative comments, they said that we recognize the town board's lead agency.
And just a quick note on the town's traffic advisory committee. It's a group of volunteers. They're not traffic professionals. They do work with people from each department within the town, the highway department, the parks department, the police department, and they hear people's concerns, but they don't have the ability to do traffic studies. That's why we have to go outside to independent agencies to do that, because it's really just a group of volunteers that, if you need a street light or a stop sign, or the issues we had over on 9W and Oak Tree Road, where they recommended to the state to give some relief and put up some new signage, but it's not, they don't have the ability to do any kind of traffic studies.
And just related to the standard practice, we don't usually hear this sort of things. Usually, the zoning changes are very common, but the planning board and ZBA, they do hear it. Usually, the applicant pays for a traffic study done by a professional firm. I'm not going to comment on the quality itself of the study, but Mazer is a firm that the town, you can see, has used. Also, the other question about the comments from the school district, the entire application is available on the website under this town board meeting to click through. There's a letter from Superintendent Pritchard there, and there's and all the rest of the stuff that they talked about is all public documents available on the town's website for review at any time. Jerry, did you have something that you're about to?
Yeah, the concern about Greenbush Road and traffic on it, I was a police officer in the town for 35 years, and we've had multiple accidents on 303. The parallel roads are used to move traffic along, otherwise it would just keep backing up. Many times we've backed up tractor trailers not to send them on side roads. However, if there's an accident and it's not only Greenbush, you can go all the way down. You have to use alternate routes to get people there. I mean, we've all run into detours, but other than that, I never found Greenbush Road, North Greenbush, to be a busy street.
Thank you. All right, next we have signed in is Mike Mandel of Pearl River. Rob, you want to chime in on this one?
Yes, I know. Just before Mr. Mandel speaks, I know we've had this issue before. I don't know what you plan on saying. I can't prevent you from speaking. But if you're in favor or against the proposal, it may compromise your ability to sit on the case as a planning board member. So, just letting you know.
Okay.
All right. Just want to make sure legal guys covering everyone's butts here.
Yeah, I see that. Good evening, Supervisor Day, members of the town board. For the record, my name is Michael Mandel, a resident of Orangetown. Tonight I'm talking as a resident and not as a member of the planning board. And I'm not in favor of it or against it. I'm just giving you my thoughts on the project. The proposed change requested by Ryerson Farms, it should be viewed in the context of it does set a very problematic precedent. You know, the property is currently zoned as LO and R40, which they spoke about, and mirrors the current zoning in the surrounding area, which is LO, LI, and R40. There are no MFR zones in that area at all. The comments by the Orangetown Planning Board has been run into the record, and specifically that high-density housing is not compatible in the area. In fact, when we talk about high-density housing, we're usually talking about a PAC or a TOD, one which is for over 55, and the other one is for transit-oriented development. In fact, the town is setting a hearing for the next public hearing at the next meeting regarding a TOD in downtown Pearl River. But other than that, once we start changing the zoning for high-density housing, we should be just aware of it, that it could create problems in the future. But that's all I want to say, is that the thought has to be considered in that, and one must also, when we're talking about the plan itself, if it's approved, the last sentence on page 1 from Rockland County Plan, they say, we recommend that notes be added to the site plan describing the excavation procedure as a requirement, and that compliance be a condition of any future site plan approval. And it should be noted that in some parts of Europe, when archaeological material or anything else is found on a site, work is halted until the items are either removed or the site sealed and construction is built upon top of that site for the future to preserve it. So in that sense, and then as one last thing, looking at our Orangetown comprehensive plan and the Route 304 overlay, just a couple of things that should be, if we're going to approve it, it should be noted in there. Section 4, page 19, no new residential driveways connecting to Route 303. And Section 414, encourage open space development, enhance commercial development. So what I'm saying is these things should be considered in the approval process, whether it's approved or it's disapproved. Notes should be added to whatever it is so that it's affected. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Deanna Lamhut, if I'm not pronouncing correctly, I apologize. Blauvelt. If you could please read the correct pronunciation of your last name.
Very good.
It was close,
Deanna
right?
Lamhut.
All right. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready. I have been living in my house for 46 years. I am always very, very concerned when builders ask for variances and zone changes. I think it always opens the door for really bad things for peaceful neighborhoods, often leading to property value issues and especially overdevelopment. Changing R40 to MFR would definitely set a very dangerous precedent for this area and others in the town. I realize considering removing green areas are good for the town budget, but I believe people built their lives in this town for the wooded areas and small town feel. A change to MFR would lead to larger, taller, more dense housing, which is definitely out of character for this area and other R40 areas. I am against this zone change. There is no hardship here. Does every builder need to make a killing at everyone else's expense? Sergeant Parker is a lovely example of beautiful, expensive houses that did not adversely affect the feel of this area and did not require any zone changes. I am quite sure the builder made a good profit and did not lose any money. Simply put, to me it's clear. R40, one house, one lot, peace and consistency. MFR, 68 units, complete change of character, overdevelopment, and danger to every other R40 area in this county. We all live in R40 zones already. All of a sudden, there's a problem. More potential problems, as far as I'm concerned, are for 68 units. And I'd like to remind everyone that when you talk about visibility and what's seen, summertime leaves Wintertime, no leaves. You will definitely see, because I live next to a factory, I bought my house in the summer, and when those leaves fell down and I saw Minolta, I almost had a heart attack. So you have to consider the fact that it will be completely visible with no leaves on the trees. I also would like to ask, since a lot of people signed and didn't speak, if there's anyone in the audience that is not going to speak that is against this zone change, could they please raise their hand? Okay.
Okay. Good to know.
Okay, also, personally, I have to say, I'm sorry to say this, but I do not find those houses attractive. I also have a petition here that only in a half a day, there are 17 names and many more that have expressed desire to sign this, which is against the zone change. Do you have any questions?
I don't think so. You all set?
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Okay. Working our way down the list, Ava, and then it becomes script, and I'm not good at script. They don't teach it anymore. Irizarry Guadaramas, I thought it might be you. Of Blauvelt. I'm sorry, it's just too fancy of a handwriting in this case. The other ones were too messy, and that was too fancy. And then just print in block letters like kindergarten, and I can read it.
I've never spoken at a town board, and I've been a resident of Blauvelt for 29 years. And I live in one of those houses that are on an acre. And I got my tax bill also. I have to say that I've heard about traffic. I thought that the presentation that was presented by the proposal for the change was sensitive and addressed the issue of the traffic. And I also think that this board is sensitive to the community and to the development and the growth that we have to have in Rockland County and in Blauvelt. When I originally bought my house, it was fine, but now I'm 70 and I'm looking to sell or stay or continue paying all the taxes that I'm paying. This townhouse development would give me the opportunity for me in my latter years to stay in Blauvelt, to enjoy Blauvelt, and to be comfortable. So I don't see any reason that has been presented to this board that we should not have this zone change. I think that we should, with sensitivity, with a view towards the future, and possibly, it should be said that when we originally came here, that we wanted to have the mountains, to have the trees, that we have got to change and we have got to go and have a view towards the future. And the future may not be what we originally wanted when we bought our homes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Dina Wallabin? Okay, submit via email. Great, thank you, Dina. Mike McCrory. The same's going to apply.
Yeah,
You have to say it.
I'm
It's
just
not
going to
green
say,
meeting.
to comment on one thing Mr. Mandel said, I know.
You're not going to have a quorum at this rate.
Yeah, it could be problematic, to use Mr. Mandel's word. I appreciate that you spoke as a private citizen, but when you serve on a planning board, you do give up certain rights to speak as a private citizen on matters such as this. So I'm just going to tell Mr. McCrory the same thing. You know, if it does go to planning board, Mr. Mandel may have to recuse himself. So, you know, I'll say a little more strongly than I did last time. Planning board members really shouldn't comment on zone changes. And if they do, they should be expected to recuse themselves. So, especially if it's going to come to them. So
All right,
It's your
it
call,
won't come
Mike.
to that. It won't come to that.
It's your
It's
call.
more of a other issue.
Putting it out there.
All right. Mike McCrory from Pearl River. I'm here as a concerned citizen. I don't have a view either way. In regards to Ryerson Estates, who also goes under another LLC, Ryerson Farms, when they petition for the zone change. We should always have concern when the LLC wants to come into town, buy property, change the zoning, and do a little development. And you guys had the same concerns, because 2 years ago, you passed local law 7-2017, which added to the town code, chapter 43, article 16, entity disclosure. And I believe you touched on it earlier about that, which I'm glad you did, because I was wondering if that was gonna come up. Just in summary, it's all public knowledge, it's on the town website. It says, an entity that wants to do business, land use business in the town, has to provide for full and fair disclosure, ensure that any and all potential conflicts of interest or other ethical concerns are properly disclosed, addressed by any and all affected parties. And now, you had discussion only about the land use application, if it pertains to this case. Under the zoning rule here, zoning amendments are considered land use applications. So with that in mind, LLCs that have land use applications have to complete an entity disclosure form. And they're saying before the town can even process here or approve, that this has to be submitted. It's right in the town code. And that's to ensure, wait, no, hang on. Sorry about that. The land use application has to be submitted to ensure that the application includes a fully completed entity disclosure statement signed and either sworn to or affirmed and submitted with said application to the respective board. So I guess the discussion would be, is there an application, is there a disclosure, entity disclosure form on file for this? And it seems like according to this code, it should be on file. And that it shouldn't even got to a hearing without this being filed. And if it is submitted, will that be posted with all the public documents? And when it is filed, I don't think you can make a decision until it's filed and every member of the board gets to review if there's any conflicts of interest with this thing. So, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
So, to the LLC disclosure, we will not vote, and we have to double check whether it was submitted, but we will not take any action on this in terms of voting without the LLC disclosure completed, and that will be like any other document, a public document, and what's submitted to the town. LLCs generally are just a legal structure. I own a car wash that has 3 LLCs associated with it. I am the sole member of 2 of them and a joint member with one other person of another. It's the way you own property. It's who's in the LLC is what we want to know. So we will make sure we have that if we don't already, and it's available publicly before any action is taken on the application to approve or disapprove it. And again, Rob went through, just normally goes to the other boards, so they're more used more commonly. Rich Carroll of Blauvelt, did you have anything you wanted to comment on? Rich Carroll? All right, thank you. Thank you, Rich. Fran Oldenberger of Blauvelt. That's fine. She'll get the copies to us.
One is from the Orangetown Environmental Committee.
Okay.
And the other is my own statement. So, my name is Fran Oldenberger. I'm in Florida. I'm here as a private citizen, but I did just give you a letter from the Orangetown Environmental Committee recommending that we not go for zone change and to preserve the property. I'm here again. I was on the original Open Space Committee, which did designate this as one of the first pieces of property to be purchased by the town for open space. I just wanted to say thank you for letting me be here. I'm here again to remind you of this. It's part of the OPDAC, the current Environmental Committee, Comprehensive Plan for Orangetown, Comprehensive Plan for Rockland County, and the state, he's emeritus, paleontologist, Dr. Ed Landing, who definitely said that this is not a usual piece of property. Dr. Landing in 1999 and subsequently has stated that if any single property in southern New York should be preserved in perpetuity for its paleontological significance, it is Blavelt's dinosaur tracks property. It is far more than a known occurrence of dinosaur tracks. It has all the information from it in situ stumps to dinosaur teeth that allow the recreation of ancient habitats and ecosystems in eastern New York. When we destroy property like this, we show up for who we really are, the destruction that humans cause. We don't care about what is irreplaceable. The almighty dollar wins. I think you all have a fiduciary duty to protect the assets of this town. The property should have been purchased by the town a long time ago. I don't believe by changing this zoning or letting someone build on it whatever they want, or not protecting it for the prosperity of the town as park, that you're doing what is needed for the future of the town. A dinosaur exhibit so close to New York would draw considerable attention and would prove to be something of a landmark for Rockland County and the town. The Orangetown motto is rich in history, but we are not honoring that. I would like our town to be about community and conscience, to not be about maximizing profits at the expense of long-term planning. As I have stated before, if we build it, then people will fill it. Route 303 will soon look like 59, and it doesn't have to. Overdevelopment is not needed. The environmental resources cannot be sustained. Commercial property, if properly regulated, would bring a better return to the town. Will most likely use fewer resources and still prove rateable. We don't need overdevelopment to have schools overwhelmed, roads to be constantly paved, maintained, and plowed. We don't need to go from R40 to MFR. There is no hardship involved here. I have said since my first days on the Open Space Committee that if we, as a town, purchased all the vacant land using a bond, our taxes could not go up, except for cost of living, because we would not have increased services or personnel. We could start with this property. I just wanted again to remind you that this property is unique, and because of the in situ quality of it, and you will never have the chance to see it again if it is destroyed. We may not get the chance to preserve an incredible asset to the town with a little help from the town and possibly the county, because right now there is a huge, very huge outpouring of response at the county level to reopen the open space acquisition programs. So we have an opportunity maybe to have, and it has been nominated to that. We may have an opportunity, if we just wait a little bit longer, to have the town maybe getting Open Space Institute involved again, because the open space action plan at the county would be reinvested, and we may be able to purchase it for forever. I don't want this property to go through a second extinction, all right? And I think that the fact that this property and the extinction fossils remind us of how fragile we all are, all right? There are no more dinosaurs to leave footprints. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to touch on a couple things that were brought up there. One, as I said at the beginning, right now the property is zoned a form of commercial for a good chunk of it, probably about 65% of it, and a form of residential R40, a much less dense zone on Greenbush Road. If we don't do anything today, we are not buying the property. The fact is that it is not 2000 or 2004. I personally, and I don't think anyone else would seriously object to it, believe there are many more, much more at-risk properties based on 2019's reality than what we were buying in the early 2000s during the run-up in the housing boom. The fact is that there are properties to the west of Pfizer, which are owned by Pfizer, which we're talking to try to make sure we get right of first refusal on, or an ability to purchase it, like 100 acres worth. There's also HNA, which is another 100 acres. There's the Orangetown portion of Nyack College. These are properties that are potentially at risk for very negative by right development there. RPC is currently there, which we already own and haven't been able to do much with, except for fortunately Chase, for a long time. There was a period of time where we were able to buy land wherever it was. Now we have to target where we need to make sure that we're preserving the character of our community and make sure that properties that may be at risk to be sold to people who don't care about the rules are not sold to them, and we can stop that and then either flip it to someone who does or not sell it at all. But we cannot go and acquire everything. Also, I'll tell you right now, I just finished the budget process for my end of it. It's not the cost of living that goes up every year. If we did a bond for every piece of open space in this town, every year taxes would go up without reductions 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%. The department budgets, with none of which requested any increase in funding beyond the mandated increases of workers' comp, salaries, promotions, that sort of thing, would have been a 10% tax hike this year if I just approved it on the cost of living increase. We reduced headcount by 15 last year. We're gonna have to reduce it again this year to keep pace with it. That's without us putting out a bond for hundreds and hundreds of acres of property. That's not how it works. New York State has costs rising at 7 to 15% a year for local municipal governments. So that has nothing to do with this proposal. Totally fine, but let's not pretend that we have unlimited funds or that costs will go up 1.5% a year with inflation. If that were, it wouldn't be an accomplishment to stand at the tax cap like everyone on this board has done since before I was on it. It's an accomplishment because it's hard. So we need to speak in reality here, not in a world where we can buy every piece of land in Orangetown and imagine that we can stop development without having some sort of actual goal in mind of focusing around it. Next, we have Deirdre. I'm going to say both of you together if one or both of you want to speak. Deirdre and Salvatore Battaglia. Does one of you want to speak first? There we go.
Good evening, everyone. So I live in Blauvelt. Just a couple of questions. If I ask the questions, will they be answered, or is it just putting it out there? Because I haven't
Depends
heard.
on the question.
All right. So I think that one of the previous gentlemen asked the same question. I'll ask it like in layman's terms. So who are the LLC members? Where does the LLC name? I haven't heard that. Who's developing the property? It's not just the builder. Who's the builder working for? Did he buy the property? So
Can you
can step up.
He'll answer that structure, but after you ask your other question, we'll get to both of them. Yeah.
So he'll answer, when was it purchased? So I was looking at properties and whatever. Are the proposed donated lands wetlands, or are they unusable for other reasons like grade? So why is he donating this land? I just try to understand that. And so it was approved for a 78,000 square foot building. Why didn't they build that building? Was it misshapen where they wouldn't be able to sell it? So the value is more in 68 units. Can they just do, 1 acre lots like the lot I live on? Why does it have to be 68 units? So it's just some questions. When it was approved for a 78,000 square foot building, how many houses were approved for the other end on Greenbush?
That was 9.
That was
I can
9.
answer that one right now.
Got it.
9 single-family homes. The rest to left hands.
So again, I was brief, a minute and a half.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm actually, because those were such pointed, specific questions, Mr. Brodsky, Bill, if you could step up and answer the ones that you can. If there are any that you can answer, the property ownership.
I'll answer your question real easy.
Yeah.
I do work for somebody. It's called my wife. Right? That is who owns the LLC.
Can you step up to the
I'm
podium?
sorry.
So who owns the property, who owns the LLC? Obviously, again, they will be submitting the formal form, and we'll have that before any vote, but.
Let me just try to
touch on it.
reiterate something for everybody. I have been building in Orangetown for over 30 years. I have built in a lot of spots all over Orangetown. Pearl River in a number of spots, Tappan in a number of spots, Piermont, I know that's a village, all right? I've built in every part of Orangetown, and I think that most of my communities that I've built came out exceedingly well. They're fully grown in, they look very well. Now, to answer the question about an LLC, and we will submit to you a full disclosure, all right? The LLC is owned by Christine Brodsky. She's my wife, she's my boss, all right? That's who the whole LLC is owned by, my wife, all right? I did that a couple of years ago. I gave her everything, all right? So she owns the LLC, and I work for her. In reality,
That's how it will work anyway, whether she owns
that's
LLC
true.
or not.
That's what I've been telling people for 35 years that have been buying houses from me. All right?
Now, just to be clarify, the property owner from previous years was Cunny?
Rathmagurry.
Mr. Cunny.
The Coonies own the
Coonies, yeah.
property.
Yeah, they own the property,
They own the property, I'm a contract
and you're a
purchaser.
contractor with them.
I'm a
through your
contract
LLC.
purchaser from them.
And they've owned it since,
You're gonna purchase it,
I'm sorry,
building it for them, you're gonna purchase
no, I'm purchasing it for development, but has nothing to do with the Coonies. Once they sell the property and transfer ownership, they're disconnected from the
so they have a
property.
sale contingent on approvals, essentially.
Yeah,
To
essentially.
your LLC,
Yes.
which is you and your wife, or your wife with you as an
No,
employee.
no, it's my wife.
Okay. And they've owned it for 10, 15, 20 years now, right? Something like that? 2016 they bought it, okay, and someone else owned it before then?
The Paladinos owned that before
Paladino.
that. Right.
Okay. And, yeah, I think that was the major one. The land is partially unusable, but also you're trying to make a trade, essentially.
No, the whole idea, as I said right from the very beginning, was that it's not unusable. I'll make it usable. I think that if you look at the whole thing, if you take R40 and you bring it straight across on Greenbush Road, all of those dinosaur tracks will disappear. All right? Everything that we proposed, the whole idea was to take Greenbush Road. That's why I proposed it. And to answer everybody's question, this is not high-density housing. This is less than 4 units per acre. All right? But we're bringing all of the density onto 303, leaving all of the open space onto Greenbush Road. That was my whole idea when I came and proposed this. All right? The traffic study, once it's all done by Mazer, will absolutely show you that the amount of traffic that will come off of an LO zone and the permitted uses on an LO zone. And just remember, there's a lot of other uses that get used within that LO and R40 zone. All right? And you'll find that the traffic is by far less. And our impact into Route 303 is by far less than what is used and permitted by right. All right? Even if a school goes there, it will still be much more traffic than we're proposing. All right? If you do the math, you take 17.5 acres and divide it by 68, you come out less than 4 units an acre. It's not high-density housing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next couple signed in, we have Elaine and Victor Armaniaco.
So I'm Elaine Armaniaco.
Armaniaco, sorry, I got your pals.
And I also wear a second hat. I'm a resident of Blauvelt, but I also wear a second hat in that I represent a coalition of community members, or neighborhood members, rather, called the Greenbush Neighborhood Coalition. We're about 100 people strong. I will be speaking, though, today as a private citizen. I'm not necessarily representing everybody from that coalition. As I recently learned, some people were just on my email list, I think, to get information about what was going on, so that was a little bit disturbing to find out. Anyway, let me be on record as stating that my priority wish for this parcel has been and will remain for it to remain open space because of its geological uniqueness for further study. As Dr. Olson just said, it's an excellent education and scientific resource. I'd really like to see a coordinated effort with the government and private agencies to make that happen. Open Space Institute was interested. I have no idea how that fell through the cracks because at least the communication I had with the representative there, they were offering, or they were trying to negotiate more than what the Coonies bought it for in 2016. So let's reach out to the Orangetown Environmental Committee, the Rockland County Department of Environmental Resources, Alan Beers, Tom Gravel at the Open Space Institute, and let's see what we could do about that. I mean, how could you not be excited about what we saw earlier? But then there's the whole other idea. If they're going to be destroyed, then I live there. So I'd obviously much rather see a residential development there. but why not encourage a residential development similar to Sergeant Parker Drive that absolutely blends beautifully? It also abuts through 303. And so therefore is compatible. And I have some serious concerns about the proposal. The entity disclosure law, I didn't even know about that, to be honest with you. I'd heard about it a little bit, but I did my own research. And the only person that I could find whose name was attached to the LLC is Teresa Kenny, Orangetown supervisor candidate, Teresa Kenny, who you, Supervisor Day, endorse. You know, that's problematic. That's a close for comfort. I urge there was one other name, Shayna Zellinger, on the information that I was able to get from the Division of Corporations. I urge the board to follow through with that entity. I think that was a great thing to put into place, and I urge them to follow through. The current owners and the contract purchaser have no evidence of hardship. They're asking for relief from the zoning. They were fully aware of the split zone. They were fully aware of the dinosaur tracks. They've created their own hardship by, wanting to do this proposal. And I left a copy of the Article 78 appeal, and I hope that you will read it, because that all had to do with not being able to prove hardships. Mr. Brodsky's dealings in Orange County are very suspect. They're very confusing. They're very hard not to pay attention to. I urge you also to remember or read about the Clausen Mountain deal. According to the tax records, this parcel was purchased for $850,000. Now we're talking about 68 units at $500,000. That's $34 million. That's a nice windfall. Not necessary. Meanwhile, an MFR zone change is going to absolutely affect the character of my neighborhood and probably reduce the value of my home at that same exchange. The EAF. The EAF. Always unanswered questions. I left a copy with notes on there. Take a look at it. The Clarkstown Planning Department says overutilization. Supervisor Day, you ran on a platform against overdevelopment. And yet you say this is a well-thought-out plan. It doesn't seem consistent. But you know what? If you can still get past all these concerns and say, yeah, this is a great proposal, let's go MFR, then I say, here's a proposal. Let Mr. Brodsky only develop the first 40 units, not develop the last units that would encompass the dinosaur tracks. And he'll still make a very decent profit. You'll still get a tax rateable. We won't be quite as impacted. And maybe that's the win-win, although I think it's Greenbush Road who are the losers overall. And I thank you for your time, but I think that this is a frightening, absolutely frightening precedent that would be set. You may not call it a precedent, but I can think of 9 or 40 acres, lots, right near my home. Why wouldn't those developers ask for a higher density? M15, R15,
Thank you.
R22.
Thank you. Just to touch on a couple of those things. So first of all, the applicant in their application doesn't allege a hardship. This isn't the ZBA asking for a variance. They're making a formal request. And as I said before, though one could easily, I certainly understand why someone would say this might set a precedent ethically or morally or generally the direction of the town. It doesn't set a legal precedent like a variance does, and you don't require a hardship to ask for one. Anyone can ask for a zone change at any time, and we would pretty much hear any of them unless it was just, Empire State Building in the middle of, almost was built already. We got the damn Blue Hill Plaza put in the 1970s, right? So that's one. 2, Teresa Kenny is the deputy town attorney who is also an active working attorney, and she has represented many people, including this LLC when it was formed. And she's stepped out and is recused from this. You won't even see her in this room right now for that reason. She has a job in the private sector and is going to bring that knowledge if she was to win. I'm happy to support her in her election, but it has nothing to do with this. I've supported many people. People supported me when I was speaking up there that are up here right now. In terms of preservation, I'm interested in preserving the town as a suburban town that allows people to live here and live in be part of the public schools and continue to have their kids live here and live here when they're retired. I did not run on a platform of buying up every piece of open space in this town, putting it on a bond, and then freezing it. Preserving a town for the future is what I ran on a platform of. However this shakes out, I will vote in a direction that I think preserves this town for the future. And I'll add, you repeatedly, to me, and in writing, have said that this was the best proposal that you have seen for this property, shy of buying it entirely. So to be accused of some sort of like, oh my God, favoritism thing, by someone who in private, in a meeting of 7 people, and they were all witnesses, said to me, of the things that you have seen for this lot, this is the best one. To come up here and sort of accuse me of some sort of nefarious dealings, thank you. You said that, preface, shy of buying it, this was the best proposal that was sold. That's enough, thank you. That's enough, thank you. You also set it up there to accuse me of saying some sort of dishonest thing. Thank you. I'm stating, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You said that after all the facts were out already to me. It's not unfair to quote you, as you said, and to quote what you said to me in person. It's dishonest to imply otherwise, actually. So I'm telling you what you said to me. And we're not buying it, and the Open Space Institute has no money. So we're asking about a zone change. I will consider all the options. We're all going to consider the options, but let's not sort of flip the script on this as some sort of crazy scheme or something like that, because it puts on, it's next to Greenbush Road. I mean, next we have Bert von Warem, Blauvelt, signed in, who I don't think is here. Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Sorry to see.
Just to be clear, it's not about a hardship. This is about what they have a right to build on the property they own and this plan. So we could say no, and then they have a right to build a factory of 70-something thousand square feet and 9 individual homes. And you can't stop them unless you buy the property. So it isn't keep it open because I like it open. It's what the owner has a right to do and his plan. And we could say no. Again, nobody's mind is made up here. We're listening to the public. But we seem to get off on tracks like, I want to keep it the way it is. Okay, then you got to buy it. Or you should have got people to buy it over the last 18 years that you had it. Before I was on the board and there was dinosaur tracks found, you should have got a group of people together and bought the property. This guy now owns the property. He's paying $40,000 a year in taxes on it, has been doing that for the last, 30, 40, 50, however, it's been vacant forever, so I guess forever. But our only decision is very simple. It's this. Leave it to what they have a right to build, or is this a better plan than what they had a right to build? That's it. Simple.
Thank you, Paul. Bert, whenever you're in.
I read the written petition presented to this board. Petition says the proposed change would be compatible with the uses in the adjoining and neighboring properties. It is definitely not. The petition says there appears to be no other permitted use under the present zoning that will bring a fair return on the property. That's not our community's problem. Caveat emptor holds true in the real estate field too. Not in Mr. Brodsky's record. About 15 years ago, he was under contract to purchase some acreage on Tweed Boulevard at the intersection of Nike Lane. He went before the planning board with a proposal for subdivision. The neighbors were so incensed over the proposal that they requested a special meeting of the planning board. Eventually, the town, the county, the state, the Sierra Club, and other open space initiatives collected $3 million and bought the property. Mr. Brodsky came away with, as far as I know, a cool $1 million to $1.5 million for property that he never even owned. In his Woodbury project, involving a 240-unit subdivision, There were problems with illegal sewage discharge. Additionally, DEC cited the builder for illegally pumping muddy water into a creek during construction. In February 2002, the Army Corps of Engineers issued a stop work order after the builder filled in protected wetlands. Then the project was cited for uncontrolled sedimentation polluting a tributary of Woodbury Creek, a state-protected trout spawning stream. The preceding information comes from the Times Herald Record, dated March 30th, 2007. Mr. Brodsky, by the way, developed approximately one-third of the Woodbury Junction development and then sold the remaining two-thirds of the property to a couple of limited liability companies from Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Again, information gotten from the Times Herald Record. This article dated March 9th, 2016. My fear is that this particular project may get a zone change, then planning board approval, and then be sold off to another builder, perhaps from Brooklyn, etc. Mr. Brodsky has told my neighbors that he has already moved his family to North Carolina and will be following them soon. Draw your own conclusions. Now, to address the present zoning, the parcel contains a section along Route 303 that is zoned LO. LO stands for Laboratory Office, a benign use that is compatible with residential uses adjoining. It's quiet, doesn't generate a whole lot of traffic, a decent neighbor, just so that you know. The other section along Greenbush Road is zoned R40, which refers to 1-acre single-family detached residences. Pretty much what the rest of the neighborhood along Greenbush Road is. Again, a use that is compatible with the rest of the area. We have no multifamily, high-density development in our neighborhood, and definitely do not want it. We don't want the additional traffic, burden on our schools, fire companies, and police. We'd like our community and neighborhood to stay the way it is. By the way, the master plan developed in 2000, the latest one, recommended that the subject property be open space. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bert. So we've gotten to the end of our sign-in sheet. The question is, do we want to continue taking comments tonight, or we want to continue at this point, now that we've reached the end of the sign-ins, to the next night, and it's 10:20? Or do we want to see if anyone else is here who wants to speak and then go for it? You want to see if anyone's with their hands up? All right. Just wanted, it's a logical checkpoint, so I want to make sure we're good, we're all on board. Okay. I'm going to go with hand raising here. Oh, you did sign in separately, sir, so, sorry. I wrote both of you together, but Victor Armeniaco. I keep getting backwards, I apologize. And I'm Italian too. So this is the last sign-in. I lied. Go ahead.
Good evening, Supervisor Day and Town Board members. I live on Greenbush Road by the site. With Mr. Day, when we were in the office discussing the project, you said that if the project fails, you would write into the zone change that the Orangetown will have first right of refusal, so Mr. Brodsky will not sell it to someone else. Does Orangetown have the money to do this? How will it work? Will there be a bond on this project? If the town of Orangetown gives the MFR zone change to this property, does this open the door to allow purchasers of other vacant R40 property on my street to go for a zone change, because now MFR conforms to in the area? Could they even just request a greater density, if not MFR? This would drastically drop the price of my house and affect my return on my house and my retirement plans. Okay. The unit that Mr. Brodsky showed has a bathroom in the basement by the family room. Is this going to be a full bath or a half bath? This could become another bedroom downstairs. Mr. Brodsky also said that a warehouse is allowed in an LO. I do not believe it is. The property, as you see, I think you sort of misstated the size, the LO part and the R40 part. As you can see in the lower left, the LO is a much smaller portion of the property. The R40 is a much larger part of the property.
Yes, you're right, I did say
Yeah,
that
yeah,
backwards, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to point it out.
The 303 frontage up to where it starts to crest on the hill is LO.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just it's a small part. If you should grant the MFR, you have the board has no jurisdiction after moving forward. A zone change is basically does basically what a variance does, and that requires a hardship. And thank you. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Now would be a logical time before we take the hand raisings. One, again, anyone can apply for a zone change in any lot anywhere in Orangetown at any time, regardless of whether you approve this or not. It does not automatically extend to anywhere. And no, it does not require hardship. It's just a different type of thing. Two, and I think we all would consider this if this was to move forward, we can put caveats and additional requirements associated with any zone change, including things like a right of first refusal, including things like requiring that sewer come in a manner that lets other people use it, including a cap on the number of units, or that a certain floor plan be used, or a certain site plan be used, or that sort of thing, are all things that you can put in a zone change because it's a permissive request. So basically, they agree to do it in exchange for these trade-offs. We will consider anything that would make this, if it takes 1 million requests and he wants to do it still, and that makes it palatable for everyone, we'll do that. No matter what, it's not palatable, we'll do that. But we can put any sort of caveats we want on it. And if it's a first refusal situation, I consider that a much more under-threat property if it was about due to be built than right now. Hands up first, yes, Barbara. And the folks that didn't sign in, please make sure you read your name at the beginning, because unless I recognize you, I won't have it in the record.
My name is Barbara Dello, and I'm speaking as an individual. As far as I know, there are no multifamily, multiple unit developments in Blauvelt. I may have missed some, but I've lived here a long time and I can't think of any. So I think in talking about precedent, we meant not precedent for that zoning changes can happen, but the precedent that we'll be putting a multi-unit development in a town that never had it, a hamlet that never had it. And I think the reason that hamlet has never had it is because the people don't want it. We like our community. And we've spoken about it being a unique piece of property because of dinosaurs, and I certainly respect that. But it's also a unique community because of how it has developed and its history, and the families have stayed here for generations. And the hamlet is unique. It's residential, it's family-oriented, and it's single family. So it would be a significant change. And then there's the point of view of zoning. We have zoning for a purpose. In my neighborhood, in my house, I had to take 6 inches off my driveway because they put flares at the end, and that broke the zoning. And I had to take those flares off so the driveway would comply. Zoning is put in for a purpose. So it's a much more important purpose to keep the character of the community. So asking for a zoning change like this is really very significant because it would really change the mountain, it would change the neighborhood, and it would change the community. I question a little bit about whether they're family homes. My daughter is, and you know, most families need 2 people to work, and particularly at the cost of those houses, and proposed townhouses. And my daughter's in a situation like that. She and her husband both work, and they're moving into Blauvelt, into a small house. And they're going to have 1 bedroom for themselves and 1 bedroom for an office where they can work. Now, if there's only 2 bedrooms, that doesn't seem like it's a kind of family-oriented townhouse to me. So I kind of like think that if we're going to build housing there, and it's a family-oriented community, that maybe we should build houses that are more appropriate for the community. I mean, we saw what happened. I mean, there was a whole change in the character of Piermont when I went to high school with a girl from Piermont, and she said when the pier was developed with multifamily, it changed the whole community. Not that it was good, not it was bad, but it was a reality. It changed the community, and it made it very hard for the people who'd lived there for a long time. And the families who wanted to come here because of the type of community it was. And I just want to make one other comment. Somebody mentioned that a development like this might save our problems with high taxes. Well, I think it's a little disingenuous to think that by putting this in, all of a sudden our taxes are going to get very low. I think that's getting, that's a little bit optimistic. And I do also want to finish with one comment, and that's that I see sitting out here people on both sides of the political aisle coming together to protect our community by standing up against this development. Thank you so much.
All right, I have a question. Can I see, just by a quick show of hands, who intends to still speak that has not spoken yet? So I know whether to take a 5-minute break. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. I'm going to move for a 5-minute recess so we can all sort of stretch our legs. Is there a second? Councilman Divney, all in favor? All right, thank you. 5 minutes. I'm going to set the timer, actually. Out of recess, is there a second? Councilman Valentine, all in favor? All right, great. So we're done with the sign-ins. Now we're going by show of hands for people who would like to speak. Do we have anyone to speak? We have, yes, sir in the tan jacket, yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Stark. Sorry, my voice is going. Lifelong resident of Blauvelt. I'm really new to the town board meeting process, but just standing back there since it started and hearing all the feedback, something that keeps running through my head is that this property is going to get sold one way or another. And based on the way that it is currently zoned, if I'm correct, I would much rather have this project moving forward than have another group come in that doesn't care about our tax base, that drains from it, and that really won't give a crap about a dinosaur print. So I am all for this, both hands in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other folks want to speak? Yes, sir. The white shirt. With the blue tie. About yay high. Would you read your name at the record, please?
Supervisor Day, members of the board, Tom Kleiner, Spark Hill. I just wanted to make one brief comment about the zoning. I did, when I was supervisor, have the pleasure of meeting Dr. Olson on the site. And he's, as he indicated, has been very involved with this, and that's one aspect of this property. But there's another aspect, too, that I'm sure the board obviously is familiar with. But in all of the time that I was in office, when Councilman Troy was in for part of that time, we had a comprehensive plan. We had an amendment to the plan. We had a Route 303 sustainable development study. We wrote the overlay zone that improved aesthetics on the Route 303 corridor. In none of those studies, and then subsequent ones with this board and a couple that preceded it, was there ever any proposal or recommendation that the zone be changed from LO, the commercial zone that borders Route 303, to MFR, or frankly, any other residential zone? Because from the New Jersey border to the Clarkstown border, the only residential multifamily use, I think, is contemporary to Pan. There's no other multifamily use. And residential use in all of the plans was discouraged because it's a commercial corridor. We wanted to, as this board did, want to improve the corridor, the safety and the aesthetics. But there was no public testimony that I can recall or planning recommendations that the commercial zones bordering 303 be changed to residential, because that's not what the corridor can best support. And then obviously there's the residential zone in the back that's consistent with the existing residential use. So finally, let me just say, this is a difficult property to build on. There's no question about that. But our forefathers, that created these zones did not create it to make it difficult for this property to be built on. They created a split zone in a fairly small piece of property, considering the whole 303 corridor, because that was those were the two appropriate zones. And anybody buying this property, as has been the case for probably decades, has recognized that going in. It's a difficult property to develop, but it is developable. You can have a modest LO use in the front, bordering 303, and a few single-family homes, if desired, on the Greenbush Road side. And in my view, this is really the issue for those who have spoken from Blauvelt, from Greenbush Road. But in my view, that's what should govern. There's no gun, anybody said, on the town board to change this zone, and we'll leave it to you to determine what is best, given these comments from the public and the experts moving forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's actually funny because, Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the 10-year anniversary of the proposal for workforce housing, low-income housing that Supervisor Kleiner put forward? It was September of 2009, I think, low-income housing zones throughout Orangetown. But that's about what it was. Thank you, sir. Thank you. That is what happened, though. It's on the record. I would suggest to everyone to go ahead and go and do a FOIL request on it if you don't believe what I'm saying, but it happened. There was about 250, 300 people here at that meeting. The videos are on YouTube. 500, sorry. There are videos on YouTube about it. So, anyway. I'm just saying. It's true. Anyway. Anyone else who wants to speak? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Peter Solari. I'm a homeowner on Greenbush Road, 573. I'm also a business owner in Orangetown. Been here since 1984. Seen a lot of changes in those years, especially being a business owner on 303. My business is pretty much right near Erie Street there. And when I first opened my business, you would look out and see maybe one or two cars at the light. Now they back up past the car wash and many times during the day. So the last thing we need is more traffic on 303, this is what this project is going to do. And any project will do. Was involved in a lawsuit years ago when another proposal was made to change the zoning on this parcel. Unfortunately, at that time, I feel that the special consideration that should have been given was not. Applicants of zone changes must meet hardship criteria. The judge reviewing the case ruled in very short order that this was not the case. I would hope at this time the parties involved give the tax-paying body in the community the proper consideration it's entitled to. Now, on a lighter note, everyone in this room has an idealistic thought in their head at some time during the day. Everybody does. No one can deny it. Why not, and this dinosaur thing has been going on since I got here.
About 250 million years.
There must be a reason for it at this time that this is still being talked about and still being debated. Why doesn't the town of Orangetown put a feather in its cap, live by its creed, rich in history, as it says out here, solicit the bodies you need to solicit, go to Albany, get funding, buy the property, make an educational site out of this thing once and for all. That'll be appreciated by generations to come. Children, older people will go to this site
and you can set it up in a multitude of different ways. It can be done. There's a reason we're still here talking about this piece of property after all these years. This must be it. Live by the creed that's on that sign, rich in history. You can do it. People have money. People will contribute. It just takes an honest effort. Don't let this opportunity pass. Yes, there are properties in Orangetown that are in particular need of consideration, but they're not unique like this piece of property. None of them are. I don't care where they are. None of them are as unique as this piece. Thank you.
Thank you. Question, sir. Peter Solari. What business do you own again? Give you a free pitch. Say that again? Modern Times Graphics, for graphics needs in Blauvelt, local business. Just giving it a pitch. Yep. In Orangeburg, sorry. Thank you. It's a use variance, wasn't it? The other one? Yeah, okay. The suit was over a use variance to the ZBA. That's the history of it. Next, anyone? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Ann Brennan, and I have lived with my husband, John Cant, in our house on Greenbush Road for 34 years. The house was built in 1785 by Abraham Blauvelt, who helped found the town of Blauvelt. And I have several concerns here. First, about the access road, it's true. When there's a big accident on 303, whether it's caused by, lightning and a squirrel or whatever, car accident or something, I can tell right away because suddenly we have 30, 40 cars going past our house. If something like this is passed, this 68, whatever it is, townhouses, those people, if they're going to be trying to get to their property and they're going to go through that safety road in the back, that's going to be even worse because they won't be able to go on 303 if there's an emergency. That was one comment I had. It could be 100, 140 cars, because if two people are living in the townhouse, they probably both have a car. The next thing was, I thought that this $1 million, this thing about he's paying $40,000 a year for the taxes, and if we pass this, the Brodsky plan, the town will be getting $1 million. So I took the 68 townhouses and I divided it into $1 million, and it comes out to $14,706. Each townhouse would be paying in rent, in taxes every year. That's a lot of money for just a two-bedroom townhouse. I don't know that people would like that. I think that's overinflated. The third thing is, Mr. Brodsky said this would be a gift to the town, the way it is now with the townhouses, and then he would give the rest of the land to the town. Well, the thing is, who will be able to use it? Are people going to come, if people live there, are other people going to feel comfortable traipsing on somebody else's property? They get to maybe take a peek at the dinosaur fossils if they can. Where would the parking be? You can't take somebody who lives there, you can't take their parking spot. Where are you going to park your car to go look at that? It might be Greenbush Road. The next thing was, my concern was, let's see if we can find it now. Mr. Valentine talked about how the board would have to decide whether this was the better plan than something else. Well, instead of deciding between this plan or another plan, how about thinking about all the people who live on Greenbush Road and the other people who are from Blauvelt who are making their wishes known, and most of them do not want this. And how about thinking about that as a solution instead of deciding we have to decide between Mr. Brodsky's or somebody else's plan?
No, it's yes or no. So if we say no, then somebody can build that's right, and we can't stop them. So I don't have a problem saying no, I'm just saying between A and B.
And the other thing is, you talked about this wouldn't set a precedent, but on Greenbush Road, I guess would be opposite this endeavor. There's a red barn and there's a lot of property. Right now it's empty. I think it was a farm at one time, and it's for sale. So if Brodsky's allowed to have this townhouse concept, what's to stop somebody from buying that big piece of property and saying, well, he's got townhouses, so why can't we have bigger townhouses on this, huge land? To me, it sets a precedent. It ruins the flavor of the country road that we have. And the last thing was, I couldn't think of her name, but I think she was a British singer. She said, you pave paradise and you put up a parking lot, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Please think about that. Thank you.
Who is that? Joni Mitchell. Joni Mitchell. I'm glad someone blurted that out. It killed me. Anyone else who would like to speak, who obviously at this point has not signed in? Yes. Ma'am, you had your hand up first, sorry. I don't know if you're together, but.
Hi, my name is Nicole Paletti. I live in Blauvelt. And I really hate to bore you with reiterating what other people have said, but I think it's kind of important that we do that because the whole purpose of this is so that you can hear from us. And I, like the last speaker, I really hope that when you're considering this, you take into account that everybody's here the night before school starts. Like, you know, I have a high schooler going for her first day tomorrow, and I'd rather be home. But I think it's really important, so I'm here. Number one, the environmental impact. In this proposal, there's this tiny little paragraph, and it just says here that the town board has assumed the role of lead agency under the SECOR for environmental review, and acting in its capacity as such has concluded that there will be no significant environmental impact or effect caused or occasioned by this zoning change. So I guess I just want to see that, like, how did that become concluded?
I was going to pause you. That's a draft that what it would look like at the end of this process. No conclusions have been made yet. We
Okay.
write the thing out so we can then edit. It's not like we haven't reached that conclusion.
Okay, and that actually brings me to another one of my points, which is what is the detailed step-by-step process? Okay, what happens after tonight? What happens next? How long is it before you vote on this? Then whatever happens after that vote, then what's the next step? So I guess, and then when, you know, let's say the environmental impact study comes in, then who reviews it? Is there, you know, public comment on that? So I guess just process. What's the process? Would be another concern. Also, at the very bottom, where I think there's an overflow water thing, I mean, I've been walking down that street for 20 years. It's wet down there. So there's a concern for wetland, and if all the utilities are coming through that south part of Clarkstown, they're gonna have to go right through that. So I guess that would be part of the environmental concern. Another thing is the traffic. I mean, every single home, whether it's 2-bedroom, 5, there's at least 2 cars there. I mean, it's just a reality. If it's $500,000 to buy this, plus taxes, 2 people are gonna live there that work. So that's 136 cars. Like, that's a lot of cars. So saying 35 cars is not, I don't think, representation of what reality is there. And also that it's not really technically affordable housing. Like, we can't really call it affordable housing if it's at that price. Also, it's not really in keeping with the neighborhood for all the reasons that everybody has said, you know, 1-acre lots, you know, all of that. Another thing I would just say is that as the board, how many things in our town have been done by people, you know, in generations past that we can look at and appreciate and say, oh my gosh, thank goodness that they did that. Because now we're actually really enjoying that. Whether it's, you know, keeping space open or whatever it is, you know, establishing good schools, all of the reasons we love to live here weren't just decided really quickly. There was like long-term thinking. So I guess we have to take into consideration moral and ethical issues in long-term planning. We can't just discount that because it's not fiscally perfect or it's not, you know, the most productive use of the land or whatever. How do we want to be remembered? And what kind of legacy do we want to live for our kids and grandkids? Another thing I would say is, you know, everyone is talking about there's no productive use of this land. I can think of a lot of reasons why that land is actually having good use as open space. And I would hope on all the flyers, if you're trying to sell these properties, that you will say the smell from the Clarkstown compost transfer station is incredibly strong. So if you want to live somewhere that is right downwind of that, then live here. Because all of those woods that are there now are actually blocking that from being even worse in our neighborhood. So that is kind of a factor. If anyone's ever been around there, they will know that. So I just, in my last bits, would just say, you know, I hope that you listen to us. I hope that you can, you know, do what you think is right for generations down the road. And it would be amazing if we could figure out how to set this aside and enjoy the educational possibilities that could be there. Thank you.
Thank you. That was rehearsed. That was 4 minutes, 57 seconds. Can you wait? Are you going to be here for? I want to wait to the end, maybe, to go over the whole process, if that's okay. There's a couple more people who wanted to speak. If you're going to stick around, okay. Anyone else who wanted to speak? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Joseph Levine. I live on Greenbush Road also, pretty close to the proposed site. Thank you all for having the hearing. I'm going to reiterate and kind of build on what some of my neighbors have said, because I do think it's really important for all of us to really voice our concerns. You know, the first thing really is just legacy-wise, you know, taking into consideration how this was zoned already, the more comprehensive plan about the proposed, you know, zoning and use of that area. You know, once the zoning is changed, once you clear the area, once the dinosaur site is disturbed, like, you can't undo that. That's done, and it's done. And we can't get that back. And there's a legacy there that you won't be able to recover. And that's a big concern. I mean, you know, along those lines, when I bought in that neighborhood, I bought for the character of the neighborhood. I bought for the character of the town. And, you know, I did that in reliance upon what it was like, and that includes the zoning of that area. And any developer that's buying knows what the zoning is and should be relying on that, just like all of the homeowners who lived in that neighborhood relied on the fact that it was a quiet neighborhood of single-family houses, and it wasn't going to be changed so dramatically. I mean, 68 houses in that small area is going to affect Greenbush, and anybody who lives on Greenbush knows it's not just when there's an emergency on 303 that there's traffic on Greenbush. There are cars that are speeding on Greenbush. People are using it as a thoroughfare all the time. There is no way all of the cars that are going to find themselves in that development are not going to be using Greenbush. Even without that, you know, entrance onto Greenbush, it's still going to be used tremendously and overused. It's just too many units. And I'm going to reiterate again, $500,000 units, two-bedroom units there with $15,000 in taxes is not affordable housing. So to make the argument that young families or first-time home buyers or retirees are going to be the ones who are going to be buying those units is not genuine. It's not real. It's not going to happen. Those are not affordable units, and those are not the people that are going to be able to buy that. And, you know, again, what Nicole was just saying about the smell, about everything else, there's no way they're going to be $500,000. So my concern even with that is that the project's going to get started, or the project's going to get completed in whatever fashion is going to be completed, and those properties are not going to get bought at that price, or it's going to get fouled up somewhere midway through. It's not realistic. I don't know. I guess I'm going to ask the board, you know, Supervisor Day and the board, if you were living in that neighborhood and you were one of the homeowners on the street right next to this proposed development, what would you guys want out of that development? How would you feel about the zoning change request? Because I guarantee you, if you were one of the people on that block, you would oppose this development. It is so dramatically different from what we all bought and what we moved into, and any kind of impact we could ever remotely anticipate. That it's huge. It's huge. So I invite you guys to all consider for yourselves, how would I feel if the shoe were, you know, if I were the one in this position, if I were the homeowner living across the street from where this is going to be? Because, yeah, we're going to see it, we're going to hear it, the construction is going to be a disaster for everybody living over there, not to mention how we're taxing it's going to be on the water, the sewer, and everything else, on the traffic. And I had one more thought. Oh, and the other thought was, it's been brought into the record, but I do want to point out that the developer has a pretty poor environmental record, and that is public record. And I don't know if any of those articles were introduced into the record, but that's a huge concern, that there's been fines levied, there's been illegal discharge, there has been filling of wetlands, there has been dumping into streams and rivers by this developer on past projects. And, you know, I don't know how this gets taken into consideration when you're making your decision about approving or disapproving this zoning change, but as a homeowner who lives there, as a person that lives in the town, I urge you to please look at the past record of this developer and to really strongly consider some of the environmental practices and development history that we already have, that we already know about. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Sir, in the back with the navy blue blazer. Yes, you. I see your hand up a few times now.
Good evening. Gabe Pasquale, Blauvelt resident. Originally, I was not going to speak. I was just going to write in. But after hearing all of the conversations, thoughts, and ideas, and in many cases, very unrealistic, euphoric, places of utopia that we're going to create with this property, you've told the attendees tonight the town is not buying the property. Someone owns the property. They have the right to develop it. It's going to get developed. The question is, how does it get developed? And is it really developed in a mindful and thoughtful way that preserves Orangetown? I believe the zone change is the right thing to do, and I'm absolutely in favor of it. I've been involved in development in this county as well as the entire East Coast, and I completely agree with Mr. Brodsky and his interpretation of the site plan. This is not a high-dense site plan. When I saw this evening, I thought it should be double the amount of homes. I live here. This is an unaffordable place for young people and retirees to stay. We say that, we don't want development, but when you look at the other communities that are surrounding us, you've got the Hollows in Orangeburg, you've got Brightview that just opened up this past winter, you've got Riverview, which is a very expensive rental scenario. By the way, it's fully occupied. And where did those people come from? They came from here. They want to stay here. If we don't give people the option in housing to stay here, they're going to leave. It's already happening. So I would encourage everybody on the board to vote in favor. I also think that what Mr. Brodsky's planned with the open space, I think that's a great gift, but for the folks that live on Greenbush Road, I have empathy, and I know he does as well because the plan shows that. And the reality of it is, if it's not a zone change and it gets developed because it's going to, you're losing everything as a homeowner on Greenbush Road, because now you're going to get 9 more homes facing Greenbush Road with driveway access directly on Greenbush Road. That's not the case with this plan. I would also think that there could be opportunity, since there's so much enthusiasm regarding the dinosaur facts and tracks. Well, you could take a portion of that land and make it some sort of an observation center. We can, the gentleman earlier said that you can salvage those, we can put them on display. It can actually be a legacy for the town. So I think there's an opportunity there to discover that as well. So again, I'm in favor of it. I know that's an unpopular position for most, but I urge you to vote in favor as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has not spoken? I'm not seeing any hands. Oh, okay, you're up. So close.
Almost, you almost got out of it.
It's all right.
Kelly
Just read your name.
Maris.
Yeah, sorry.
I live on Greenbush Road, so this will affect us in many ways. It will bring our property value down. The noise, the density of the project, it doesn't really coincide with the rest of the homes in the neighborhood. In the beginning, we thought it was a good plan, and we were for it with my husband, but the more and more we hear how our neighbors feel, and it's not a good mix. And when we met with Mr. Brodsky, he had said to us at that meeting, at our home, at Elaine's home, that if we didn't want this project, that he would walk away from it. So I think everybody in this room tonight has told you they don't want this project, they don't want this proposal. So the next step is left to him. He has been generous, though. Good night.
Thank you. Go for it, and thank you.
Robert Zarilli, 601 Greenbush. I'm neighbor of Kelly. We're right across from the property.
Okay.
I just feel that, yes, everything she said, I'm echoing, and my neighbors. I came here 22 years ago. I did not expect this kind of change. We fought this many times, and we will continue to fight till the end. I don't want this development. I don't like this. There's just too many units. The noise, ever since they put the light with the FedEx, I'm dealing with all these tractor trailers coming down with their 21 gears, taking off, coming up. I'm very upset that the volume of traffic, there's going to be major accidents with these turns coming into the property. Too many units. If we could just go back to this regular proposal, the way it was, that's the way it was designed, as they were saying. And the dinosaur footprints, I believe there's many more. There could be a lot of educational benefits, but that's down the road. But I don't see this. I don't want it. I don't want any part of it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'm gonna go out on a limb. You got something to hand in? Okay, sure, just give it to the clerk, thank you. Go on a limb and say everyone's spoken that wants to speak? Okay. All right, so I don't know, is there anything you want to answer for the applicant before we continue it? Yes, we're gonna go through let's go through the process first. Rob, and you want to step to the podium in the interim, and Rob, Don, if you want to step to the podium, Rob's gonna take us through the next steps, and then we'll wrap it up with this phase up. It's not over.
Right, well, briefly, this was a significant part of the process. When the board set the hearing, the application, the plans were distributed, as I said earlier, to county planning, town of Clarkstown, town of Orangetown Planning Board, et cetera. So all those comments are in. Obviously, all of the comments that were made here tonight are a part of it. What's next really depends on how the board wants to proceed with this. I don't think, and I think the supervisor mentioned earlier, it's not ready for a vote tonight. It would be appropriate to put it over. Any comments that wanted to be emailed in or sent in, the board would consider, be part of the record. I don't know if there's any changes that the board may want. I mean, you may want to informally poll the board or just ask the board its general feelings in terms of going forward, if it wants to see something else. But when it's put on for the next hearing, or continuation, I should say, if it's appropriate, if the board were to entertain it before it would approve it, you mentioned about the SECRA, or somebody mentioned about the SECRA, before any approval, the board would have to do that review, which this is part of it, and issue a negative declaration if it was inclined to grant the proposal, and then proceed to entertain the proposal if that's what the board wanted to do. So in terms of where we go from here, again, it depends on if the board's ready to either, let the applicant know if it wants to see something else, see a change, never see them again. You have many options, and, that's really the process, is we're in the middle. We have a lot of information right now. The board has a lot of information, and it's up to the board to make a determination. Or, the options are approve it. Option would be to take a formal vote and deny it, or to table it. It's a legislative act. They're making an application here for a zone change, just like any legislative act. The board may decide, not to entertain it or do nothing at this point. But
So just one thing that maybe might answer your question a little bit also, there are levels of review beyond us once a zone change is done, where you get to the more traditional environmental, if you will, views like drainage and things like that. Those occur when they submit the site plan to planning board and the actual construction is being dealt with. So we are dealing more with the effect of a rezone as opposed to the effect of the actual construction.
Right.
So there's layers beyond us if we were to pass this, where there would be other further review.
One of the items that, again, in anticipation of some of the issues that were raised, let's say the board were to approve a zone change, and it was approved MFR, Supervisor is indicating it would have to go for a site plan review to the planning board. Theoretically, he could take the plan and come in with a totally different plan to the planning board. What is proposed in the language is that, similar to what we do in a PAC zone, again, because of the unique nature of the property in this application, if it were to be approved, that the applicant would have to go with a very similar plan, and if it changed at all, it would have to come back to this board to make sure that this board is satisfied that, okay, the actual plan, I mean, this is more of a conceptual plan. As the supervisor indicated, doesn't have all the drainage worked out, doesn't have many of the details. Once they do that, if it were approved, then they would get into that aspect of it. Once it were the board, or they were going for that application, then it would come back to this board to say, okay, yeah, it's still the 68 units, or maybe it's a few more, maybe it's a few less, whatever the case may be. But it would be to say, okay, whatever this board approved, at this stage, let's say, hasn't changed 6 months from now when they go to planning board. So again, that's, of course, only if there were an approval or a go-ahead to go forward.
Okay. So, Don, is there anything you want to add before we can talk about scheduling for the continuation?
Well, I think I should summarize,
Sure.
Okay. And I'm not going to, I'm going to try to stay away from individuals, but I'm just going to try to get certain points across, all right? This was well thought out, strange as it may seem. This was well thought out. The people in Greenwich Road did not want traffic. They are not getting traffic. This was one of the things they insisted upon. They wanted a preservation of certain areas where the dinosaur tracks were. Again, areas will be just not developed at all, and the other areas are going to work with the scientists from Lamont so that if they are found, they can be used and sent away, or they can be preserved and sent to museums. Okay? Everybody screams hardship. This is not a hardship situation. This is a case very basically where we're asking for a zone change. There is no hardship here. We have a builder here. The builder says, I'm purchased this land. I would like to develop it this way. He's not claiming hardship. He said, this is the best way economically I can develop the land, but his claim is not on a hardship under any circumstance. Then the person brought up about another tract of land, about the old barn, okay? That doesn't fit anyway into the criteria. That can no way be changed to this kind of zone. It cannot, okay? I know everybody says, well, there's a big tract of land in the back of my house. Yes, it is. There's a large with a barn and everything else. It will not fit into this criteria. And as was said before, everybody has a right to present their own case. That's not going to happen, okay? What you have here is something that, again, well thought out. Traffic, you couldn't have asked for a better situation with traffic where it's coming out on a traffic light, which is actually regulating what's going in and what's going out. And your traffic engineer, I don't care who you're going to hire, will show that the amount of traffic generated from this particular development will be way less than your present zoning. Okay? It is a benefit in terms of traffic. And now, I'm sorry about FedEx and I'm sorry about the trucks coming up, but that's not the situation that's involved here. This is a residential home. Now, nobody said this is affordable housing. It is not affordable housing. It is housing that is reasonable for young couples and people like that, or people who want to live in the town of Orangetown that can live here. It is not affordable. Don't let anybody think it is affordable. Okay? Then they talked about Mr. Brodsky. Mr. Brodsky built many, many homes in the town of Orangetown. There has never been one complaint about his building in the town of Orangetown. Okay? You want to bring up what happened in Woodbury? I haven't the slightest idea. I don't know what the newspaper had. I know he was not convicted of anything. He was not put on record of anything. He built in Orangetown well. In fact, he's even building in Orangetown right now. He's building homes, and nobody's complained about his building. Okay? Mr. Kleiner brought up about Contempora, and I thanked him because I don't remember that name. Contempora is a similar type situation, a condo job in the town of Orangetown, which has twice the zoning of this piece. And it's been there for many years and not bothered anybody. Okay, this is not heavy zoning. 4 units to the acre is not heavy zoning. What he's done here, he's tried to preserve, he's tried to use the concept of average density to put something where it will be usable and the town will get a benefit from what's taking place. It is a good, and the property will be used. Don't ever think the property's not gonna be used. If it's not gonna be used by him, it's gonna be used by somebody else under the rights in this town. As for the LLC, he told you what the LLC was. We will have it notarized and substantiated to what it is and done. I don't know, you want to put in anything else that you can think of? I think we pretty much covered. Please understand, it's a good design. It's going to be reviewed by everybody. If the board gives the zoning, we have to go through the planning board, we have to go through the zoning board, we have to go through the architecture review board. This thing is going to have a year and a half worth of planning that has to go to get this done, okay? It's not something that's going to happen overnight, but please understand, the property is going to be used. Unless somebody buys it, well, everybody would like their property bought, but you know something, there aren't any funds. And people are not really thinking. They talked about it, I showed very specifically. There's a woman over here that did it at 14,000 so-and-so. I told you it's $15,000 per unit, and that's based on existing facilities like this in the town of Orangetown. It's going to bring in tax of those rates. So if you really think about it, you're going to get a tax revenue of 25.5 times what you're getting right now. That's a lot of money, especially for the South Orangetown School District. They can use it. The increase went up quite a bit, not only for residential, it went up for commercial. They're bringing sewers to an area that didn't have sewers. The fact that it's coming through the town of Clarkstown, that's been done many times. We've had areas bordering on the area where the two municipalities work with one another, okay? They're bringing students to a school district that wants students. Okay, this isn't something where they're saying, oh no, we don't want any students because it's going to cost us money. This school district has facilities and they don't have students. I do believe it's a good move, it's a good design, and if Mr. Brodsky doesn't develop it, somebody else will, based on the zoning, which is not going to be what these people want, and they will not see it. This is going to be 40 feet below the level. These people will not see these houses. They will not hear these houses. And I don't know about the smell, but I remember the smell in the landfill used to be very, very bad at one time, but I don't know, I go by it right now and I don't find it at all. I think we have other problems and smells in this town.
Thank you. All right, so let's talk about the date. So, what I'm seeing is the 17th is jam-packed, and the first has 3 hearings, but they're all minor, little chinky hearings, like community choice, solar film, so 10-1 at 8:20. 10-1 at 8:20 work for the applicant for a continuation? 10-1? Okay. All right, so do I have a motion to continue?
Just before you do that, one thing in terms of what we might expect. I know.
Yes, things we need, yeah.
Right, and the board may want to comment on that, but one thing, I know Jane, I mentioned Jane Slavin's letter of today's date. There have some sections A to L. You mentioned zoning variances. It's not entirely clear what variances you would need. I think if you could do a little better delineation on what portion will go to the town, et cetera, just tidy it up a little bit. And I think if you look at Jane's letter and maybe submit a response to that, maybe the board would have, and the public would have a better idea of.
Yeah, let's tack down. So
those
if you can get,
variances, things of that
1,
nature.
the LLC disclosure thing. 2, respond to the things brought up in Jane Slavin's letter. 3, we're gonna, probably have some caveats we want to put on it. I know some of them come up already. Be prepared for what your, minimum case scenario is, because this meeting we're kind of listening. Next meeting we're going to be more digging into the whether it's happening, and if so, how's. So definitely have a concept of what your minimum standard that you're willing to accept on trade-offs, and you must do this is, and all sorts of things like that, because we'll be discussing that a little more at the next one. So do I have a motion to continue the public hearing to 10-1 at 8:20 p.m.? Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Troy, all in favor? Aye. All right, so next resolution, because we are actually in a town board meeting, believe it or not. We're skipping the adoption of negative deck, because that's not for tonight, and we're also skipping the next one, because that's also not for tonight. Yeah, if you're here for this public hearing, that's the last thing occurring on the public hearing. The rest stuff is just other stuff for the town that you may be interested in because you're residents, but you don't have to stay more on a school night. This is the planning board thing we talked about for item number 7. We're going to hold off on that and review the resumes. Do I have a resolution to accept assistance from Suez for the Walkway for Heroes? Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Troy, all in favor. Resolution to approve the employment with Chief Butterworth. Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Valentine, all in favor. Resolution to approve employment agreement with Captain Shannon. Is there a motion? Councilman Troy, second by Councilman Divney, all in favor. Resolution to, slow down, approve the agreement with Goosetown Enterprises. I'll give it to you, Divney, but you jumped the gun. Second by Councilman Batari, all in favor. Resolution to grant permission for IT to go to a training conference. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second by Councilman Divney, all in favor. Resolution to approve and authorize Mountain View Avenue Sparkhill Creek Culvert Transportation Project funding. Motion, Councilman Troy, second by Councilman Valentine, all in favor. Resolution to approve land assistance for the Color Run, Pearl Middle School. Is there a motion? Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor. Resolution to approve land aid for the PAL at Piermont. Motion by Councilman Troy, second by Councilman Batari, all in favor. Resolution to lend aid for Pearl River Day, 10-12. Councilman Divney, Councilman Troy, seconds. All in favor. Resolution to approve. You're gonna hit a pause on this video a lot, I think, Rosanna. Resolution to approve the lend aid for the Food Truck Festival. I'm not giving that. You jumped the gun on that one. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second by Councilman Troy, all in favor. You're getting offsides penalties. Resolution to approve to lend the Great Night Get Together Saturday, September 14th. Councilman Valentine, second by Councilman Divney, all in favor. Oh, wait, hold on. That was the Nyack Get Together. Nyack 10 Miler, South Nyack 10 Miler. Is there a motion? Councilman Batari, second by Councilman Divney, all in favor. Resolution to lend aid for the Italian feast. Is there a motion by Councilman Batari? That makes sense. Is Councilman Valentine also makes sense. All in favor? All right. Next one, resolution to lend assistance more for the Sons of Italy Italian feast. We're going to go Councilman Batari and Councilman Valentine also. Is there all in favor, please? Batari with the motion, Valentine with the second on that one. Approve the updated SRO agreement per river. Just so you can hear it, I'm going to give this one to Councilman Divney. Is there a second on this? Councilman Troy, all in favor. Resolution to approve settlement of personal injury claim as not actually an infant, a child of 12 years old. Is there a motion? Councilman Divney, second by Councilman Valentine, all in favor. And now for the audit, pay vouchers.
Tonight's audit consists of 2 warrants for $2.1 million. First warrant had 1 voucher for $272 for a sign. Second warrant had 180 vouchers for $2.1 million. Items of interest, number 2 and 3, the golf contracts. Number 4, Carmelo Scaffoldy and Sons, $29,000 for the Green Bush Road Bike Bypass. Number 7, CSEA Employee Benefits, $29,000 for dental benefits. Number 9, Felonzer Engineering, $23,000 for engineering regarding the Aloof. And number 10, Global Mantello, $19,000 for fuel. Number 12, Mazer Consulting, $37,000 for the Route 303 culvert project. Number 14, Department of Civil Service, $750,000 for healthcare benefits. Number 17, the Comptroller, $42,000 for justice fines. Number 19, Van Bortle Ford, $67,000 for sewer vehicle that was bonded. And number 20, Verde Electric, $32,000 for traffic signal work. Any questions on the audit?
Questions on the audit? Do I have a motion? Councilman Batari, second by Councilman Troy, all in favor? All right. Do we have a need for executive session, or is it a want for executive session? Very quick. Okay, and we also had one young man pass away recently, resident of Pearl River, age 23, Dylan Joseph Keneally. Is there anyone else we want to adjourn in memory of that the board knows the name of? Senator Bill Larkin, World War II and Korea veteran, and recently passed. Come on. Grow up, Tom. I think it's getting late. Everyone's getting past their bedtime. All right, so I'm gonna move us to enter executive session to discuss legal matters and also adjourn immediately thereafter in memory of Dylan Joseph Keneally and Senator Bill Larkin. Is there a second, Councilman Divney? All in favor? Thank you all very much.